Ooh, I'm live. Well, that sounds exciting. As soon as I click this button, usually it takes a minute. I was just trying to get ahead of the game. But okay, we'll just do it that way then. That's not going to go live? Interesting. Hi. Let me try that again. That just feels really weird. And why is it in a window? Oh, there we go. Yay. Oh, there's my. We'll get this going here. I want to click that button. You got to click all the buttons. If you don't, everybody says if they. Hey, what's up, Scott We're the Imagination Creation Films, and today it is Valentine's Day, February 14th, not 14th, 2025. And you know what that means, right? Yeah, it's Friday. It's a live stream, but we've got tons and tons and tons of informations to get out there because y'all may have heard that Red and Nikon has released a big update for the Komodo X and for the Raptor X, and that is the Z mount. The Z mount is, well, it's Nikon's mirrorless mount, and it's going to do a lot of things, and there are tons and tons and tons of questions out there about it, and I'm going to do my best to answer them, and then in a little while we'll have Phil Holland jumping on here, and we'll be chatting about that. Oh, isn't that special? So, happy Valentine's Day if you're a Komodo X or a Raptor X user, because right now, Red just dropped the new beta firmware that has, well, a lot of the improvements for some of this stuff, including some extra autofocus goodies for the RF users out there. So, yeah, let me take one of these out for the moment, just so I don't feel weird. Yeah, that just literally happened. I was just watching, and it just came out. So, yeah, go out there and have some fun. Let's see here. Let's go to make sure we got anything. Finally joining. I missed so many. Yeah, Roman, how are you? Good to see you again. Oops, zooming right past. And I know this is not necessary for setting up a camera, but I'm really curious about the autofocus improvements that come with the new mount. Well, there's quite a bit, and I'll go into detail as to why. Really stoked for all the good info that's bound to come from this live stream. Indeed. Hey, Rob, how are you? If y'all don't know Kermudge, he's Rob, and he's in Alaska. He's the guy that lives on the railroad. He's a cool dude. Hello, Frank. How are you? Let's see. We got Jared. Hello. We got a different Jared. A lot of people get excited when I say Jared. I have Z9 and Z6 III for stills and a little hybrid video, but most of my video work is FX3 and FX6 for the ISO 12800. I'm not sure I see a compelling reason to pick up a KX at this point. So here would be an interesting point. I would imagine, since you have E-mount lenses, you probably have a few of them, since you have the FX3, FX, Did you know that the new Z mount with the Megadap adapter, and it needs to, the Megadap is the one that works fantastic, and I'll show you, well, I don't have it right here, but the Megadap Z to E works pretty well with the new Komodo X. So now all of your E-mount lenses work with the Raptor X Z and the Komodo X Z. So that's one little point right there. Let's see here. Let's say good evening. Yeah, good evening day. Yes. Happy Valentine's Day. Well, thank you, Roman. Will you be my Valentine, Roman? Cynthia will be mad, but we can talk about it. But the dang like button. Hit the dang like button. Yeah, right. Stephen F. Woo, we need to update our firmware anyways. Excited for this. Yeah, now keep in mind, it is beta. So if you're doing a project tomorrow, don't update to the beta. I mean, you can always go back, but just, do it on your off time so that you don't jinx anything. Red's usually pretty good about it, but you don't want to find the little issue. You don't want to find that little issue while you're on set. Would love to hear autofocus improvements on Z versus A. Yep, okay, get to that in just a second. I want to get through all these first before they backload. Hey, yep. It's Skywalker Bear is what I do not know about the adapter. Megadap, Megadap. They make a variety of adapters. Hello, Carlos. I'm looking. Where is it? Oh, wait. Is this? There it is. Well, this is the RF to. No, this is the Z, to EF, and it works fantastic. Z8, Z63, et cetera. They make one that's ever so slightly thin, really thin, for Z to E, and it works on the new Raptor X with Z mount and vice versa. Gregory, hello, sir. How are you? How's the show over there? I hear some amazing things. The beta does say that remove face detection from beta status. Now we need eye detection. Well, it's got some pretty good capabilities in there. Mr. Goldberg, how are you, sir? Love the beard. Yeah, Santa beard's coming in full. I gotta have that for Alaska. I was gonna try to keep up. Yes, I have one to order at my camera shop. Nice. Okay, got through all of that. Let's jump through what we have, what has changed, is that a spot? Weird. Who it's for, who it's not for, that kind of stuff. First off, let me just say that through all of my poking and prodding throughout history and such, I can say that RF will be alongside Z-mount for quite a while. There's no need to drop one over the other. So a lot of people seem to be concerned that RF is history now. It's here to stay. Now let's caveat that a little bit with Canon is Canon, cool company, great stuff, weird highlights. Red is Red. Well, Red is now Nikon, but Red licensed RF from Canon. Canon was all too happy to say, give me the money. Yeah, sure. But Canon is they're not really close to Red. There's a license agreement. They're friends. They have, kind of a handshake kind of thing. So that means that all the special sauce, all the special everything that Canon can use, they don't necessarily share that with Red. They may not share it at all. That's just life. Z-mount is Nikon. Nikon owns Red. That is not handshake. That's a hug. That's a synergy. That's family. When you got family, you don't need anything else. Sorry, that's my bad Dom impression. When I'm starting to get a sinus infection that's going around. So all that to be said, Z-mount is a very, well, it's actually a really good mount because it is bigger. It's bigger. It's closer to the sensor. Bigger in that the actual opening is bigger. It's closer to the sensor, which means it can basically adapt to everything legally not legal excluded. But because Nikon, and Red are family, they eat dinner together. They share everything that they can. They literally share everything, which means that everything that Nikon has for autofocus, they're sharing with Red. And everything that Red has, they're sharing back with Nikon. That means that Z mount is most likely going to have far more power and control from Red than RF. They're just because of that connections that they have. RF doesn't have that, so RF will always be worked on and refined as best they can. But all the bells and whistles are going to come Z mount because they get it and they can do it really easily without having to back engineer a lot of things. Not to say that RF won't have bells and whistles. They'll probably have quite a bit, but they're probably not going to be able to have everything. But again, it depends on what you need for that. I'm going to run through a bunch of things real quick, and then I see you. I was just going to say, Phil is like literally just hey, let me in. Let's see. Yeah, let's just bring him in. Y'all are all here for him anyway. So here we go, Phil. Hi, Phil. Oh wait, there he is.
Ooh. Am I not good?
You look good to me. Well, you're a little frozen. That's weird.
How do I fix that?
You're okay, but you're doing like you're on one of my live streams. This is weird.
Can you hear me clearly?
Oh yeah, I hear you great.
Okay, so I just am in this weird staccato, not functioning world. Okay.
That's interesting. Do you have an iPad? No, you're PC. You don't have an iPad.
I'm on PC. I can try a couple things.
I had a weird issue with my iPad Wi-Fi messing with another laptop, which was weird.
This will load for a second. That does nothing.
Sure. I could drop you out if you need.
I just came out of a meeting too, and it was working beautifully.
Huh.
Is there a...
It says your connection is great.
And actually, ooh, that's exciting. That's not good.
Well, try not to move.
Maybe I'll stand as still as humanly possible.
Right.
In the stream. You're using some new stuff I haven't seen you use before too.
Oh, the EV mug? Yeah, I had to do that because StreamYard being a pain in the butt. I don't want to deal with
I have no idea what's going on, but it has probably everything to do with my signal mismatching with yours somehow.
You want to drop completely off and back in, or?
No, there's I don't think there's short of me actually not using this setup, I don't think there's a way to do this quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe, is there a way to decimate what I'm doing, very quickly? Okay, well, I can talk.
Yeah, you can talk.
I can talk in 1 frame per second or whatever this is.
You'll just have your arm up forever.
Yeah. Hello. I will do that.
Well, I don't know if you caught. Yeah, there you go. Live in peace.
I came in at the tail end of you talking a little bit about the Nikon Z stuff, or Z.
I was basically kind of going, and I guess we could tag team going through all these different things.
Did you cover kind of what has transpired to get to now?
No, I literally just started. I wanted to catch up on everything before the comments got way out of control.
Okay.
So if you want to share a little history, go right ahead.
I will. Let me try one thing real quick to see if it will improve. Let me jump out of this call. I'll come back because this is going to probably be a crazy stream.
All right, I'll drop you right out. Yep, you're out. So let's see here. It was interesting how on the Red video they mentioned RF glass corrections limitations and how Nikon glass doesn't rely on software corrections. Correct. That is correct. Uh, there's 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 a lot of things to it. So what Red has been working on this, well, literally since the Nikon acquisition started. This was not just something they recently did. They've been working on this a while, and it's actually been somewhat operational for a little bit. And we will go through all the up if you want to get yours upgraded, and what that entails, and why certain things aren't available. I have a lot of answers here that I ask. Y'all know I'm going to ask some questions. That's for sure. And I have gone through all the resources everywhere I could to get answers, and I got them. The let's see here. Once the Z8 can Red Raw, the marriage will be complete. And I don't know what that'll be, Ryan. They're definitely talking to each other, and it doesn't look like one has won over the other. Hello, Zach. Yeah, no kidding, Zach. He's got 600 gig connection, and he's got 1 frame a second. And it's not Scott this time. It's amazing. Yeah, I don't know. And also let me preface by saying there are some things that I cannot answer because of NDAs. So things that I know that are not forthright. Yeah, I can't do that. But it appears to me as though the two Red Raw and In Raw might be flavors for a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. On one hand, the Z mount to be able to use the E mount. Yep. On the other hand, I cannot eat the 3500 electronic ND to PL RF adapter I purchased. Well, yeah. Oh, I hear you. I hear you. And I had great question. I mean, I was like right off the bat, I was like, wait, so if the ND, electronic ND, or if the lens connection is 4 millimeters closer to the sensor, did Red move that ND back 4 millimeters to give a little more throat in the PL? Do have an answer on that finally. No, they didn't move it. It literally uses the same brackets and everything. The ND is in the same location as the RF. So those lenses that didn't work with RF to PL END are probably not going to work with the Z either. Just those little extensions on the throat. I would imagine that has to do with maintaining using the same brackets, but also optically. Remember, we all learned it together, that you can't stick a filter even in between a lens and a sensor without it affecting the focus ability. And so even moving that could affect that. And I would imagine they would want to use the same parts because how'd they get in there? The END module that goes in, that is the exact same one. So that's good. Let's see here. What we got here? So if they can do Sony E to Z, can they do RF to Z? So let me just use a gut analogy here. I believe the answer is going to be no. If anybody was close, it would be Red and Nikon to be able to do that. But my gut's telling me no. And it's probably way more complex than any of us really want to know. It would be lovely, but I don't think that's likely. Well, I mean, it could happen sometime in the future. I mean, Canon has got very tight controls on their RF mount. So we want at some point they're going to loosen up a little bit. Okay, he feels good. Let's bring it back in. Hey, there, Phil. Hey, look at you. You have over 2 frames a second now. What was it?
I won't even describe what I just did, but
Oh, did you reboot
it
Windows?
involved.
Come on, tell me. No.
Oh no, installing new software and everything. It was quite an
Oh
endeavor.
my. Oh my. So, Phil, please give us your history to this point of this.
So I think the interesting thing is, we're now in February, and last year I think the deal went through in April officially. So when
Right before
Nikon,
NAB.
yeah, Nikon acquired Red right before NAB, and a lot of us had conversations with high ups at Red and Nikon, and it was really interesting because a lot of people were saying it was going to take about 18 months to see any hardware. Hey, Carlos. But we're actually considerably, that would be another 8 months from now, essentially. Hey, Gregory. So what has happened since the acquisition is obviously the canoodling between Nikon and Red engineers, product people, and the things we've seen so far. I mean, the very first thing, and honestly quite an honor, was the LUTs I made were sort of brought into the Nikon ecosystem, which was really cool. And that's really special to me, and I hold a little bit of pride about that. And then the next thing that happened was... No, I just got centered for you. The next thing that happened...
It was that large head thing that always feels wrong because you always have the close-ups. So I didn't want to do it.
I can move back if you want. The next thing that happened after that, which was pretty recent, outside of a few firmware updates that have happened in the Red world, as well as the Nikon world, was adding NRAW to Red Cine X. And that's in beta, and there's a lot of things that don't work totally. Yeah. I mean, I've had so many people message me, I can't export a R3D snapshot of NRAW, and I'm like, I've already suggested that there needs to be an NRAW snapshot if it detects Nikon footage or whatever. So that's what happened last, and now here we are, middle of the month, with presumably camera shipping next month. The Z-mount DSM-C3 Red cameras, which is pretty cool. There's already been a lot of preview stuff online about them. I'm sure there's a lot of information that got out there correctly, mostly. Some stuff has been a little bit misreported.
There's definitely some incorrect out there.
That's fine. That's going to happen. There's a lot to understand. And it's kind of interesting because in the very short time that this announcement has even existed, I've had people contact me from the world of stills that I've never spoken to before in my life, who just realized that there's an 8K VistaVision or VV camera that can shoot 120 frames per second, and they shoot like wildlife. And they're like, wait, can I do what I'm thinking about, like extracting stills from motion? And I'm like, wow, it's all the things that have already happened in the Red
That's
world.
what the S is.
Yeah.
DSMC.
So I think CVP did a good job of covering it, and I know they had the camera for a brief time, and those guys are great.
Yeah, they're always. I mean, they're great. They really do a great job, and they always have that access ahead of time because they're a dealer. It's just like, come on.
Yeah, and I think the first thing to say is Red and Nikon are allowing an upgrade for VV and Komodo X, Raptor X and Komodo X, global shutter stuff. And honestly, those are two of the best cameras that Red has released to date. And that's nice that they're building on that. Now, what's important to understand is it's not just a mount. There are some hardware changes in the camera to allow for a few things, some more power distribution, as well as some of the interactivity with the Z-mount lenses. And there's going to be some interesting balancing between the hardware as well as the software, what we call firmware, in the camera, that will be allowing for certain things that are going to be coming around the horizon. I think at this point the cat's out of the bag that firmware 2.0 is coming.
No, it just
And
literally dropped. It just dropped.
like today,
Like just right at the live stream.
oh my gosh.
KG, are you out there? Because Gregory
I,
said you
I
were going
have
to try
to.
to join the stream. Say hi.
I have to. I mean, I just got out of an hour-long meeting, so
Yeah, go get
everything's
it.
happening too
I'll,
much, too
I
fast.
will I will go with what you're saying there. Just keep in
Okay.
mind the Z mount has some capabilities, like for that power zoom, there is power that goes through it.
Yeah.
There's some other things that isn't public yet for
Is it?
what's coming.
It's beta, right?
It is beta, yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm say. Oh yeah, there it is, and
Yep,
that's
it
not the release
literally
candidate. That's actually it.
just popped up.
Uh,
And because of that power, if you think about Komodo, remember what Jared used to say, the reason they went with the little BP or those little batteries is they wanted to keep it simple. And I believe those batteries had a 30-watt capability, and Komodo uses 28. There's simply not any power in Komodo to be
no.
able
Well, there's also
to
no more memory in Komodo. I
yeah,
mean, you have to
the
keep in
firmware.
mind. Yeah, and I mean that's another thing that needs to be sort of said out loud. Red is going to be supporting Z mount and RF mount. So
Yeah,
both of these things are going to be things moving forward and for the now. But I'll say something interesting. For I have everybody's equipment here, and I think I've told you sort of quietly behind the scenes. I've gone through quite a process in the last calendar year of looking deeply at a lot of different camera systems. I mean, I got a few behind me, I got a few next to me, and I've been looking at what they've been doing top to bottom, and I'll call a few things out. Nikon has been doing very well for a while, and one of the frustrating things that people have been experiencing with the Canon world, as they are unraveling their vision of what RF mount is, they came out with some banger lenses, but a lot of their lenses rely heavily now on in-camera lens correction. And that seems counterintuitive to me spending, say, several $1,000s on a camera just to lose 15 to 20 something percent of my image through correction. And in the motion picture world, that is a very, very hard sell. Now, to the pros to that, and I'm just going to say, this is basically February 2023 onward. So, like, if you look at Canon's new VCM lenses or their new zooms, those require a lot of correction just to get the distortion corrected, even on lenses that you wouldn't normally expect needing distortion correction. Now, Nikon's gone another way, and to their credit, they're not so focused on making smaller lenses, even though I would say they're still fairly compact, especially their 1.2s. Like, you really think about what's going on there, that's still pretty phenomenal. But I will say this, it's been interesting to see these new modern designs coming out from Sony, Canon, and Nikon, particularly, to see what they're focusing on with the image quality and how the lenses function. And maybe that might be too deep of a conversation to have here right now, but some of the stuff that Nikon's been doing has been high quality with a focus on sort of beautiful bokeh, whereas let's just say some of the Canon lenses are extremely high quality, but with that distortion and things like that, you're not getting everything you could be getting, if you catch my drift. And to Sony's credit, which is kind of interesting now because we can adapt E mount to Z, you can explore that world as needed. And actually, one of the lenses I'm most excited to try is the Zeiss Batis 40mm f2 close focus that I love so much. And I think that's going to work really well on VB.
I want to jump on something that you said and give two examples, and that is what Canon is doing internally. There are two lenses that everybody loves that are not 100% accurate, and that being the 24 to 105 f2.8 is full frame all the way through. They do a little bit of manipulation of
I would say
the
they do a
vignette.
lot of manipulation.
Fair enough.
It's a hard vignette. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
porthole.
and they're cheating it to make it into that affordable 24 to 105 f2.8. The other one is the 28 to 70 f2. That
Yes.
lens is not f2 all the way through. It says it is, but they're
Most
doing.
zooms have a little drop, usually at the far end of the zoom range. It depends on the zoom design. And there's a really funny zoom. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but the coverage got worse in the middle of the zoom range, and that's not usually what happens.
Well, that is the most difficult part,
Yeah.
is converting from wide to telephoto.
But I mean, let's bypass all of that,
Yep.
and let's talk about some of the gains that you have. And I think this is a very important topic that nobody really gets into. So we talk about the autofocus from the mirrorless cameras, and we talk about how they compare to, say, Komodo or Raptor or whatever. I think one of the things that's incredibly overlooked is in the motion picture cameras, or the production cameras as I like to call them, the concept of autofocus is a relatively new thing. And what you're going to see with this new firmware is Red and Nikon unraveling what they envision autofocus to do, function, and how it operates, and how you're going to interface with it with the new lenses and the new technology. So while the mirrorless cameras are very good at tracking objects and things like that, and I think maybe down the line we'll have really advanced autofocus stuff in the production cameras. Right now, what we're just seeing with this new firmware is how you can tune the lens, how you can tune the focus speed, how to empower your shot creation. And this is what's really exciting to me, because there's been a lot of talk about, oh, we don't need autofocus, and meanwhile, there's people who completely rely on it. And it's a very funny thing. It's a duality of how we exist in this world, right? Like, some people are really all about this. Some people don't necessarily need it. And on the flip side, and we know from when Komodo launched, everyone discovered that they can make their camera packages like this big with a lens. And that's where the mirrorless mounts show the biggest strength. If you need to keep your camera package really small and highly functional, it's quite phenomenal. And I have my camera rigged with a PL mount lens behind me here. And that's going to work just the same. So if you have a Z Raptor or an RF Raptor, there's not going to be much of a difference. But the real difference, and I know it's been talked about on other previews and things like that. So you have your RF mount at 20 millimeter flange distance, which is the distance between the mount and the image plane. The Z mount is slightly inset into the bodies now, and is at 16 millimeter. And I know it's been mentioned, but the Z mount that Nikon makes is the shallowest flange depth mount, and you can adapt so many things to it.
It's also the
But
largest.
not everything. Yeah, it's also it's 55 millimeter inner diameter. I can't believe I have this stuff off the top of my head, but I've been doing a lot of testing and coverage experiments and stuff. And I'm excited to see whatever. I saw that it was mentioned that Red's going to have a lens coverage tool, which
Yes.
hopefully saves me the trouble of doing that. It's interesting to see where things are going now, because I think what I kind of miss is the 1 a.m., 2 a.m. message from Jared to, hey, do you want to shoot with this new thing that's coming out, or can we get your thoughts on something? And then I'm trying to put together a shoot in the middle of nowhere, very fast, with no crew, trying to test something. And that's been happening for several cameras along the way. I still have the first Komodo here, Komodo X, Raptor. Those have been a joy, but now we're in a slightly different scenario where I think you're going to see Red and Nikon being a little bit more closed off. And I hope the door is still open for some of my advice in a few directions. because I've definitely found, I don't know, dozens and dozens of bugs and things over the years. So,
Let,
but yeah, this should be
let's
exciting.
let's go through some of the net new things that are coming because of Z mount. To me, one of my favorites is instead of 1/3 increments on the f-stop going through and having to touch, you now can do it with their little adapter, their little ring on the Z. You can
Yeah,
do it in point 0.1 increments,
yeah, this guy right here.
which which basically gives you a declicked feel.
Yeah, you're going to have quite a few interesting things. So you're going to have, you know, Red licensed the RF mount from Canon. Now that Nikon is on top of Red and owning Red, there, I think you said it's, one thing is friends and the other thing is family.
Yeah.
And the Red engineers can work much closer with the Nikon engineers. So we'll have access to not only what exists now, but stuff that will come down the line in the future. And that smoothness on the ring, the iris ring, is a big thing. I really like the customization of the focus pull in degrees and how that functions. And for any of the lenses like this one that have, a shortcut button,
Right.
that's extra buttons that you have at your disposal to, toggle your focus modes or your exposure checks and things like that, your false color. Super cool. Super cool
So
stuff coming on that front.
the autofocus on the Z is well improved over what we've had previously. You get two functions that are adjustable, the sensitivity and speed. And
Yeah.
speed is how fast it goes, and sensitivity is how it reacts to changes. You
Yeah.
on RF, you only get one of those, and it's the sensitivity you don't get. Is that right?
I believe it's a sensitivity. I
Yeah.
will need to have cameras in front of me to know more. And there are some benefits that are coming to RF with the new firmware stuff. So that this is kind of the interesting times we're in, where I think we're going to have dualities of benefits between the mounts and things like that, as well as the extra gains you get from going to Z mount. And I'm really curious to see how going from Z to E, what benefits could be had there, because you can't do RF to E.
Right.
So we'll have to see. And I think
What
that's going to be an emerging story.
what Red got from the Nikon family is they got access to their autofocus algorithm. And the algorithm is better than Red's algorithm because Red is not an autofocus company. They literally were working on it just kind of on the side a lot of times.
Very
That
different.
algorithm,
Yeah, the R&D that goes into that stuff, it's from a motion picture camera company versus, say, a stills and then motion picture camera company is going to be wildly different. And it's
the
not even just
algorithm,
the algorithm, it's the access to the phase detect,
right.
the contrast detect, and how those things work. Yeah.
And with the algorithm that Nikon is putting into the Red, they can then use that against the RF, which is why some of the features work and some of them don't. And we are getting an improvement of RF. And
Correct. Yeah.
what basically Red likes to say is keep your autofocus box around here. Stay in that box, and it will do just fine in there. If you go off to the edges, it's going to be a problem. And the reason is it doesn't have, the Red sensors don't have a whole lot of phase detection points, not compared to, say,
No.
like, the Z8, which, has, what, 400 something?
Yeah, and it's interesting to see where sensor design is going to go from here. I, I just wrapped a full production year pretty much entirely shooting on Raptor X, and just the larger sensor with global shutter has been very nice, and I even exploited the extended highlight feature, and it's been improved even since my last shoots. What did I filmed? What, 6-ish, 7 months last year, with the longest shoot being about 70 days, and the images I was able to capture without skew just really has been phenomenal. I really can't stress that enough. And I'm wondering what the future sensors are going to be you know, I'm still actually fine as long as it's a fast readout. But the global shutter has been an absolute joy, and
Yeah,
worth building
global
on.
shutter is well worth it. Let me blast through all the quick details so that we can allow questions to come in and we can really hit in some topics that people are interested in.
Okay.
The the you can update a Komodo X or a Raptor X. You cannot update the Z to the Komodo or the regular V Raptor.
Yeah.
You cannot do the update yourself. They literally the sensor, the heat sink, and everything is mounted to the front plate, the front cap. So they have to replace that whole cap.
Yeah.
So it's something that Red has to do. Now, I'm going to say this, and I don't pull any punches. This is the cheapest update Red has ever done. It's
Yeah.
$1,595 for Komodo X and $1,695 for Raptor X.
Yeah. And I asked Red a couple of critical questions because I own several cameras that are fully outfitted for each package. Right now, I'm very curious if they're going to offer a mount upgrade for people who have the PL, the RF to PL, and RF to PL END. Because the upgrade price to Raptor X Z mount or Komodo X Z mount is, one thing. Getting new mounts is going to be a different thing, which could be costly. So I'm waiting for the answer back on that.
So I have a lot of answers on that. Some of it's custom. So the Z to PL adapter uses the exact same mounting hardware as the RF to PL. It is the same throat distance away from the sensor. So we don't gain anything.
Except for the
no
rear
new
of it, that
lenses
needs to be a Z mount and a different amount of space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're
And
using the
electronics
exact because they're using the exact same E and D module inside there. You should be able to buy just the adapter, and use your ND and your brackets. You
Yeah.
just have to call them to get that. But none of that's available till April.
Oh, okay. Good dish to know.
There's literally like 3 or 4 of them in existence, and I believe they're all on the show floor right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. If you have a Stormtrooper version, there's no Stormtrooper Raptor X's, right? That never
Yeah,
did
I
happen.
converted my original, the first Raptor X. I actually, when they allowed the Raptor 8KVV upgrade, I converted my white one to black, so I have a full fleet of black cameras, except for
Right.
one camera. Well, 2 actually. My Komodo X is still a Stormtrooper.
Yeah.
So I'll have to envision what's going to happen there.
So you get an Oreo. They
Yeah.
cannot update keeping the same front because again they're all built together. So if you have a white one, Stormtrooper, and you want to update, you're going to get an Oreo.
Right.
Well,
Red is
it's a top-off
messaging
Oreo.
me right now that something is being looked into, and they'll have a better answer
Oh,
eventually.
for which part?
Mount related. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got a confirmation on that literally 30 minutes before the live stream. On that
Okay.
one. Let's see. There are upgrades back for all the way down except Red 1, a DSMC 1 all the way through current. You can update DSMC 1 and 2 to a Raptor X, and it has to be a pack. It can't just be the bare bones systems. It has to be the pack.
That's also a me situation because I have 2 Monstros that I have kept because of what Monstro can still do uniquely. But I think that's a pretty reasonable trade-in. I've been looking at the used prices, and there's a couple that make a lot of sense. And upgrading to a pack makes a lot of sense because you need to more or less outfit your system.
A Dragon X is the best bang for the buck right now because a Dragon X body used, just the body. They don't need any of the accessories, but just the body goes for like $2,500 to $3,000 used, and you get $5,000.
Well, don't tell people that. Now I have to buy them on eBay while we're talking.
Well, I'm sorry. I was just trying to be honest.
It's
Another
amazing
thing,
that they're allowing the upgrade at all, by the way.
it is.
Yeah.
And I think, in fairness, the reason they're doing it for the packs is they've got to spread that cost across multiple
Yeah.
SKUs. It just helps. It helps them, but it is helping you. They are giving you basically a little love there. Another thing that people have brought up is they're tired of the endless mounts, that adapters to everything, and I get it. They would really like a removable front mount. I get it, but somebody had a really good point. On a DSMC2, there are 4 M4 screws that hold that mount down. That's it. On a V-Raptor with their PL adapter, that's 8 screws, and they're not M4s. They're much stouter.
Well,
So,
yeah, I mean that was some of the discussion when DSMC3 started because people were, there's an interesting disconnect between mount adapters and mounts. And you can see behind me that there's what we call the chin straps, or the head strap and the chin strap on the camera. Like, those exist to make that nice and snug, but what you gain by having this thing also plugged directly into a mirrorless mount is not only with the bayonet lock and you have the friction lock, the locking collar, that makes that really secure and secure against the electronic contacts. So it is a very secure mount. It's repeatable. I think it was just a different mindset, and from the get-go now, if you just buy, let's just say, a Leica M mount to RF or Z adapter, typically those mounts don't have any supports on them, and with the bayonet you would have a little wiggle, but with the locking collar it won't twist on you. But this is a much heavier lens, for instance, than that. Like, we're talking about something that might be this big versus something that's quite larger. And there's pros and cons. Do you want to be able to use those smaller lenses on a camera like this? This is the smallest possible way to do that. And also there are gains that come with it. And I view these as actually mount adapters or mounts.
yeah.
I just call them mounts. Whereas in DSMC2, yes, you had the little 4 screws and the little registration pin, whatever.
I mean, is it a Vitus 2 an E-mount with a PL adapter?
It is. And actually, since we brought Sony into the equation here, something that I think really needs to be highlighted, there's not a lot of motion picture cameras out there. There's only a few companies who make them. But right now, Nikon and Sony are the only 2 manufacturers who offer mirrorless mounts on production cameras. And in the case of Nikon, they not only offer Canon RF, they now offer Nikon Z as well as E through the adapters.
Yep.
So you literally have the swash of pretty much everything that's available before you get into the weird medium format mirrorless mounts and things like that. And some of those can be adapted to this system if need be, probably. I have to look at the math on that. And no one's doing that at the moment. But it's amazing because a lot of people are still shooting with Canon EF glass or Nikon F. It's very, very interesting to see the host of possibilities you have. I mean, it's quite cool.
Let's. I think we did most of the main questions that people ask. Here's a question, and Phil, you can.
Amir, yes.
Sure.
And I'll tell you my strong opinion about this. Komodo is the precursor to DSMC3. When Jared was around, he would always famously say, it's not quite DSMC3. And it's because Komodo was really designed to be this super compact, super power-friendly or lightweight camera, very low power draw. But the gains you get with Komodo X are better low-light performance, a slightly better sensor size for Super 35 shooting and not having issues with that. A more functional camera, the wireless, well, quote, I shouldn't say that, not wireless, but the RMI monitor connection, so you have direct control over that without powering other cables and things like that. I think where the price is right now for both Komodo and Komodo X, I still know people who buy Komodos and use Komodos because they're definitely rigging them in such ways where that extra weight savings and power efficiency is valuable. But if the second you shoot with Komodo X, I mean, like literally the first day you shoot with that camera, you're gonna go, oh, that's
Yeah,
that's why I should be using that.
it's a little more special.
And it's like a
Uh,
$2,000 difference right now, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's so close. For some people that might mean working another month or two or four to pay that
But
off.
it's so much more of a camera. It's more
It's
than
yeah,
double of a camera. Yeah,
yeah.
And
It's like
even the image
yeah,
is beautiful. Uh,
color's
Another
very
point I wanted to bring up, since it's been leaked out there more than I think it should have been, uh, with the new power zoom Nikon lens that they have, the ability to zoom that is going to be controllable on the actual Komodo X or
I
V-Raptor.
wouldn't know anything about that.
uh, I mean, I heard somebody else say it today on the internet, so I am no longer the one who's doing it,
Yeah.
and it may be controllable elsewhere. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, and I think that's something to be mentioned. We're talking about rather deep camera systems that have things like we know what red control is. We're using these cameras regularly. You have tremendous control through your mobile devices, your iPads, your iPhones, your Android phones. You can even control these cameras now to a degree through their web browser. These are very deep systems that can do a lot and fit a lot of different shooting scenarios. And I'm curious to see where this goes from here. Like we know about that zoom lens, but like that could also stretch out to other things that don't exist yet.
All right, uh, and I want to point out, Komodo OG is not done. They are still actively doing firmware updates for it, albeit they're smaller because literally Komodo is running out of firmware space. Same thing with V-Raptor. V-Raptor is not done. Just because they're only focusing on Komodo X and Raptor X, that's just their like version 2 of DSMC2. They're
Yeah.
still fully supporting and fully bringing these abilities to these other cameras. Now, I don't think Komodo can't have the autofocus update. I don't believe, at least not yet. Who knows?
I don't know.
Right now,
I,
it's
I do.
just
I
X
think
and
more
Y.
about how rental houses or production companies that own multiple cameras will maybe respond to something like this, where if you're a rental housing PL mount glass more often than not, but you still might want to exploit the concept of the mirrorless mounts. And I've seen that actually happen on major productions because it helps keep the camera small. So I would imagine for major players, they're probably going to just buy a couple of additional cameras, or maybe upgrade a couple off the shelf to help them adapt to that stuff. Ooh.
Do you prefer Z glass or RF glass overall? It's an interesting question.
Oh man, let's have a few beers for that one. Here's exactly what happened, and I really have nothing but respect for lens manufacturers. I'm a lens nut. Canon
No.
set off with RF mount in a really strong way with some very high quality glass, and then they started very recently, last couple of years, focusing on VCM and all these heavy lens correction lenses that need that stuff. Meanwhile, Nikon in that time frame has released really beautiful lenses that are as good, optically speaking, minimal CA if that's something that detracts you from lenses. And I like that they understand that it's a weird thing because I am very for people having a lot of control over their image. But again, it's counterintuitive to have a camera that's several $1,000s and even lenses that are several $1,000s, all to have really heavy post lens correction. And I'm not talking about vignetting. Vignetting happens on every lens. I'm talking about the distortion stuff. It's weird. It's just super weird to me. And I get it because it helps some markets. Like if you were making cameras only for wedding folks and keeping things small and things like that, makes a lot of sense to me. But for people who are concerned with image quality, they don't want a lot of those post lens corrections, not to an extreme amount. That's just my personal opinion. I actually like both. I have both lenses, here. I'm about to significantly invest in some more Z glass, which is going to be, a thing that
Yeah, surprise.
I have a bunch here and I've been enjoying it. And actually, I'll even show you something interesting. Here's my Z8. This is a Voigtlander lens that they also make in E mount, but they've been making them for native Z mount. These are the little teeny f2 APOs, and they're beautiful little lenses that are very high quality. They are manual focus, they're manual iris, they're manual everything, but they're beautiful. And it's just another example of like something that literally does not exist in RF mount at all.
Yeah, my opinion on Canon RF versus Z, and I'll even throw an E in there. You really have three excellent manufacturers of optical lenses. They're just gorgeous. All three of them, at their top tier glass, are within this much of each other as far as sharpness and all of that. What you end up with is these, where Canon kind of does these niche kind of lenses, which I kind of love those lenses, but they're also doing corrections in camera. You've got Nikon that's got, I mean, I was a Nikon guy forever, and I loved how sharp their glass was. The same thing with E. Now, you actually can run all three, not at the same time, but you have that option now.
I mean, that's the interesting thing is you'll have the option depending, on what body you have and what things you want to explore. And I mean, I can't tell you how many people have asked me if I can adapt E mount to RED cameras before. Now that was literally not possible. So
and now it is.
Yeah.
Let's see.
New focus updates.
Actual RF to Z adapter. No, there's not. And there was very briefly. It was oh God, what's that company that had the guy that always has the deep voice when he did the commercials?
Deep voice for the commercials.
Yeah, it's a Chinese company, but they always have that tall, bald guy, white American.
Oh,
guy.
Photo Diaz.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Everybody knows
I
when I
don't know
say
if
that
that
deep
guy's
voice.
still working for them now.
I don't know if he is or not. They actually made one and got a massive lawsuit against him. So you can find them on eBay, but they are really expensive.
There'll probably be a time, if it's possible physically, as well as it being licensed by somebody to allow for it, and I think for L mount perhaps as well.
Yeah.
Canon's just been very protective over their IP. I mean, all of these companies really are. Like, we're not talking about the other direction, right? And it's
they
really
want to make their money, and they want R&D and everything.
Man, I haven't seen you in years, bud.
Yeah, Evan.
I've been enjoying some of his film shots recently, though.
28 to 70. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Mega Dep is awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think that's probably something Nikon's going to look at is probably higher speed zooms. The funny thing is on VV, the 28 to 70 Canon does not cover perfectly on the full VV sensor. That's fine at 7K and a little bit beyond 7K. Yeah, so. I'd have to look into that.
It's good that the ND modules are the same. There's hope that expansion of those modules higher ND. Oh, yeah.
I have been judiciously using the END mount. In fact, my last long shoot, everything was shot with the END mount, and we only went for clear during the evenings. It was actually the longest duration I have ever shot in my life without using front NDs.
On the END, I hope I'm not saying something I'm not supposed to say. I know their goal is to have a much larger coverage of the ND, and they had to scale it back a little bit. Between the XL and the X, so they kind of made them a little bit narrower. So I would imagine they're still working on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a conversation if you look at how that technology has been deployed, the range that you get. So you can go. What we have today is 2 to 7 stops.
So, right.
You could kind of do nearly a 1 stop to 5 stop. It'd probably be 1 and some change, but I think Red probably did the the legwork in their minds, going, well, most people don't even use a one-stop ND. Let's just jump up to 2. And the most common NDs used typically are a 3 or a 4 on most productions globally. So I don't know. It's a tricky one. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
I think the real thing to do is to find a way with the smaller cameras to go to clear, because the mechanism that's in the XL goes down, and
Right.
there's space for that.
But there's room, yeah.
And I know Kipper Tai was exploring a mechanical glass ND system that basically is a sort of, I wouldn't call it a carousel in this case, but a sort of, I don't know, butcher knife motion. That still has not been released, and will probably be coming out this coming year, or this year actually.
Yeah. Scott, it definitely from Nikon's standpoint and from Keiji's standpoint, there's no negative to keeping RF on. It's a little more work, but it's not that much work. It's just small amounts of tweaking that they have to do for the lens mounts. But what they do is they open the door to Canon users and Sony and Nikon users, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'll probably, if this unfolds the way I'm thinking right now, is I'm going to get one of my Raptors in for Zed. There's a small chance I'll get an additional Raptor. I'm debating that right now, and then I'll keep 2 as RF, because I always have at least 2 of whatever camera type, and I think that's a good division. And if I have to go for PL for multicam, it won't matter at all. So I hate this correction.
Yeah. I've wondered this. I don't know what the current body price of a Komodo X used is, but I'll throw this out there. If anybody is looking for a Stormtrooper, in fact, the very last Stormtrooper ever made of Komodo X, I would be willing to sell the body only for basically the $1,500 off of that I would just pay anyway to get it converted, and then I would just buy a black one so I don't have an Oreo. So if anybody's interested in that and think that's reasonable,
trying to hawk your wares, okay.
I mean, I don't want an Oreo, and I think it's almost disrespectful to Oreo the Stormtroopers.
I need some deep meditation to figure out if I'm gonna get my Monstros upgraded to Raptor at the moment, because one of those Monstros is the end journey of the Dragon 8K VV sensor, and it still has the forged housing on it. I would have a very hard time parting with that camera.
They're special. You gotta have some of that. AVBH started to interrupt. Scott, that launch video you shots never seen before. Specifically, angles incredible. Thank you. I loved the absolute heck out of shooting that. It was so much fun.
You look like you were having fun. I saw that BTS.
I was smiling so much, even though I was concentrating. I'm trying to get closer and closer. I'm making inroads with some connections to see about getting a little better seat, but then I'm going to move to Alaska and be far away. I hope they're over reliance on yeah, it's pure laziness. Yep. Like the RF 35, small distortion is off the charts.
Yeah, so the VCM has distortion, but the interestingly enough, the cheaper macro RF 35, which is a good lens, isn't so bad. But the 24, holy moly, it's a fisheye lens.
Phil, you gonna grow a beard?
No, that would be very dangerous for many of my shooting applications. In fact, I used to have long hair and a ponytail, and once that got caught in a camera on my shoulder, it was pretty much short hair after that. So
okay, so you have hair, great. Yeah, way to rub it in. Jeez.
You got hair. It's
no, not much. Well, I mean, it's there.
Yeah, the 15 to 35 does have some fall off issues and.
Right. Let's see here. It's not truly f2.8 all the way through.
I don't know many zooms that hold their stop all the way through truly. Like, in fact, if you look in cinema lenses, and this is going to be kind of a fun time because I've seen more people looking from the still world into the motion picture world. But if you look at some of the cinema zooms, they even have markings sometimes on the lens to denote when the dip in exposure is. I'll call out the Zeiss 28 to 80, the CZ, somewhere near, I think it's 65-ish mil, it dips down to 80 slightly. But like we're talking very small amount, like imperceptible.
Yeah. Carlos is wondering if they hired you to get the new tool done.
No, and Lauren's really smart, and I think he's probably
Yeah.
spearheading that. I used to have that lens data tool, and then when CVP, a lot of my efforts with my tools are completely altruistic when it comes down to it. And when CVP started doing theirs, pretty much in the same way I was doing it, I was like, okay, well, I did what 200 lenses. Let them just continue this on.
Right.
I'm I'm primarily a filmmaker, and it's very hard for me to figure out what amount of time to give back to the community and stuff like that. It's something I struggle with all the time. So
Diane, I don't, I don't think the Z8 would be a fit. I mean, like not physically, but more in the grand scheme of things. The Z8 is a step downward, but also a step larger. So it's a mix.
sensor's good in Z8. It's very
Oh, it's a
interesting.
great sensor, but it's full frame and it's not global shutter, which are two things that Komodo is not.
Or Komodo is.
I mean, well, yeah,
Yeah.
Komodo Super 35-ish, and
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
yeah,
It's funny. A buddy of mine just did a test between the A7R5 and the Z8, and really interesting results from that test that we're trying to figure out where the wiggle room is there. Might be down to the actual physical sensor micro lenses or something, but it's I mean that's really pixel peepee stuff, but it's interesting.
Z8 is solid. The
Z8 and Z9 are solid, and really it can't be understated enough that what Nikon's been doing since about 2018 onward has really been quite impressive, and that even includes with the acquisition of Red, because I feel like we're seeing the tip of the iceberg of really good things to come. That's the best I can say about that today.
the Z6 III, it's good. I wouldn't put it. It's a companion to the Z8, but there's definitely a dynamic range difference between the two. It is
Oh yeah.
quite noticeable. But I don't dislike the Z6 III, and it's very affordable, and it shoots 6K RAW. Yeah, kind of cool.
It's interesting as this has been transpiring, and I've now actually tested every mirrorless Nikon camera that's on the market. I really have some thoughts that I'd like to apply to those cameras more so than the Red cameras at this point. But that's that's crazy to think about because I'm usually not focused on that stuff.
Justin, I believe the answer is yes. Is that your understanding too, there, Phil? With the
Yeah, per frame. So it's when you say stream, I don't know if you mean stream into the metadata, but yes, in Red cameras, when you're recording Red code RAW, every frame gets the lens metadata. Whereas if you're recording ProRes, not so much. But that's a mezzanine video file, so that's yeah.
Eno mounts are the lightest lenses for gimbals.
No, actually,
All four options can have a lens that is the lightest.
yeah. I mean, yeah. But technically, I think the Pancake Z's are the lightest, technically speaking. But we're talking about ounces here. Yeah, they're all small. All the mirrorless stuff's designed to be that way.
How long are the conversions going to be available? I
Don't know
if
that, but if I was a guessing man, I would say probably throughout the rest of the year, because you got to think about the backlog they're going to get. We're not even to NAB. This was a BSC announcement, which is a trade show in the UK.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe shortest possible would be probably 6 months, but probably they'll do it until the end of the year.
Does the new firmware allow RF versions to have the custom focus pull as well, or is that just? I don't have that answer.
I believe the degrees are available on RF. I would need to see the firmware on my. I have to up. I literally have to.
We all have to update it now. Let's see here.
By the way, when I joined the stream, I was a little discombobulated because I came out of our meeting that was extremely technical with a different company, and brains kind of. Yeah.
Josh, I went. I answered it earlier, but You can get it in white, but there's no reasonable person on the planet who's going to pay for that because you have to go into basically Red's custom shop, basically. And there is a number of cameras that make it worthwhile, and I think that number is around 8 for it to actually start.
Well, he
being
said he'd
not
pay
so
extra
bad.
for that. We just don't know how much he's willing to pay extra.
I know how
So,
much it costs, and let me tell you, you can buy a whole Komodo X for that cost.
yeah. When I went to black on my Stormtrooper Raptor, I was having the hardest time rationalizing it, and then I was like being grounded about it. Like my other cameras are black, so it was just a quick decision.
Now that's an interesting one there, Brandon. Not just the front plate, but also the side power button side is black.
Yeah, because of where the locking collar goes. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Well, now it's what, Othello, or is that what was the game that was white and black? I don't remember which one that was.
Yeah. It was funny. I saw some of the people commenting on the gold locking collar ring, and I'm like, it's such a great place to identify what camera you have.
Right?
Like
And
it's not. It's
tiny.
not even. Yeah, it's tiny. It's like not a.
And I actually like the color. I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, it's
you got to
gotta blow my-
You're talking about 100 years of branding with that color scheme.
I mean, my whole goal with the Reds was to have a red, white, and blue camera. I needed the red one that was red. And now I'm going to have an Oreo in the middle. So it's like,
Oh yeah.
hey, Tim. Let's see. Alex, just got a Monstro. Also, yeah, Monstro is really, if you don't need global shutter or you don't need the 120 frames per second, Monstro has a lot of extra things that.
I saw there's a guy on YouTube who I follow, a guy named Spencer Sakurai. He just recently
Oh yeah, I
picked
like
up
Spencer. Yeah,
Monstro.
it's cool.
And I dropped a comment on his YouTube because he's coming to all of this stuff a little bit later.
Yeah.
And something I always like to remind people is Monstro was an upgrade to the Dragon sensor, which was very well received industry wide. And Monstro was also very well received industry wide, so much so that Panavision built the DXLs off of it, DXL2s. And it's really, it's again the precursor to what Raptor is. And if we don't currently have interchangeable quote unquote OLPFs or CSFs, depending on whatever you called them along the way. But it would be interesting to get that capability back. But at the same time, these new filter stacks that we have in the camera provide freedom to shoot in damn near every lighting condition at every T-stop or F-stop.
All right.
So.
Let's not forget that we heard it here first on Scott's live stream when we had Jared on. There's been a lot of firsts when Jared was on. It's funny because somebody asked me, that I said, yeah, Jared mentioned that a while back, and he's like, where? And I said, on a live stream. He goes, which specific live stream and where? I'm like, bro, there's way too many live streams and way too many hours for me to try to remember exactly which one.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I need to be better about opening the dialogue, and it's definitely something I need to kind of mull over because I want to help as much as I used to. Mm-hmm. But obviously, the whole thing has changed with the current thing, and I owe KG an email or two since the new year.
Hopefully KG's on. Are you on, KG? He was going to try to listen. We'll see. Say hi, KG.
He's been very good. I talked to him at length right after the acquisition, both at NAB and then at Cinegear, which was much more informative. He's a smart guy. He's got the right energy, and
I think he loves it. I think he really loves this.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been one of the driving forces of all of the good things that have been happening with Nikon along the way.
Well,
and there's a lot of people.
Oops. Where did Phil go? Come back. Oh, there's Phil. Hold on.
Did I drop off somehow?
Yeah, you completely disappeared, but hey, there you are. And you have all your frames.
I just was
Did you hit the wrong button?
Lauren's asking about the lens coverage tool right now. Oh, he's showing me. Good. I like what I'm seeing. But he didn't do one. Oh no, he did okay. He did okay. Good job, Lauren. He's sending me a preview.
Oh, cool. I mean, Lauren,
Am
hi.
I allowed to share this? Can you text me back if you're listening? Because
Lauren,
this
feel
does
free
actually
to
look pretty good.
share with
Look at
Scotty,
you.
your
You
bestest
guys have
friend.
already tested all of these.
Yeah, they've been working on it for sure.
That saves me a long time. There's one lens that I'd like to see that's not on here. Does this one cover? Good. Oh, he said it's not a preview. It's currently online. Okay, good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're just doing everything real fast and
They're
furious.
just blasting it out there. It's like all surprises everywhere.
It's the worst trick they've ever played because we're literally talking and it's like, oh hey, we know they can't do anything if we drop firmware right now.
It would be funny if they literally just waited to this exact moment just to do it all, just to throw us all off.
Well, I'm looking at Felipe's comment there. I think Red and Nikon should try new resolutions like 12K, 17K, if they are not already in that. I'll say a few things.
Yeah.
Nobody on Earth is going to be more of a proponent to have a higher resolution acquisition system than me. Because I have done so much array work. I even did some very high resolution work last year. And it's just, I'd prefer to use one camera, frankly. Now, that said, one of my criticisms with the 17K from BMD, I think it's amazing what they're doing, but for whatever reason, the sensor height is not spec'd to the 16K height, what it should actually be. It's like 600 or 800 pixels shorter. And it drives me insane. So whatever Red does, if they go to 12K or whatever, they need to keep in mind the DCI and UHD standards.
Right, which is the cinema standard for filmmakers.
And I produced a host of content for a 16K display last year. And, these cameras weren't out yet, so it wouldn't have mattered anyways. But I cannot literally use those cameras at all to do that work without upscaling. So I still have to use arrays as of this moment.
What would you like to say about clear photo sites?
Man, there's a lot of conversation with that, and I understand why they're there. The thing you have to understand with these really small pixel pitches is having a luminance pixel really greatly improves the sensitivity. At the same time, we also have sensors with things like PDAF. So we have sensors that have pixels that do other things. And sometimes we even have pixels that have half split, quad split, and what other things going on. So I'm open-minded to a lot of these sensor concepts, but I do prefer having a traditional Bayer pattern for the technical color benefits. Because technically speaking, it's still the best way to do this until there's two technologies that are superior, but they're very light hungry and no one's doing them yet for motion picture stuff.
And on the discussion of actual resolution with clear photo sites?
Well, it's a crazier thing there, and so you have the luminance resolution potentially, but the problem is the diffraction. So I saw somebody do a review of some other camera, not even a BMD camera, and they were talking about how this doesn't happen, and it's very difficult to understand for a lot of people. But your diffraction, you have a very thin window before you get to diffraction at very small pixel sizes, and that's what, if you've ever seen like a cell phone like that offers a RAW versus the fully processed image, there's so much happening to make that image look okay. And diffraction is one of those sort of things, and that's why you don't really have adjustable irises too much on cell phones, because these lenses are highly optimized to the sensor themselves. But no, I mean, I like that BMD is pressing the gas in a few different directions. Mm-hmm. The camera bodies themselves are more of an issue for me at the moment. But I mean, there's many people who those are the right cameras for. In my world, they don't exist on productions because it's a Red Airy or Sony Venice 2 world at the moment. The async, yes.
Oh yeah, the quote, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And my time with the Z8, doing some fairly technical tests, as well as looking at what they do under the hood a little bit, has been quite impressive. I'm actually more excited about what the next generation cameras can do, because I think they'll be for the Nikon cameras. The Z series is probably going to have a major leap in autofocus.
Which is pretty good already. I mean, it's up there.
Yeah,
The Z8, I love the Z8. What I really enjoy about them is that you can literally shoot any codec and almost it.
yeah.
It could use some video centric stuff, but
Honestly, I think for all the mirrorless camera manufacturers, they need to. I'll just this. I'm speaking to everybody right now. Publish a list of the best cards at whatever capacities, because Canon, Sony, everybody, there's so many different cards out there now that I've talked to so many people, and I've even faced issues myself. Yeah, they got to do a better job on that. Whereas the production cameras, like Red has done a good job of certifying media, making sure it's compatible,
right.
testing it thoroughly. Yeah, and I agree, Zach. Yes, that servo lens has definitely been made for a reason.
Audio Advantage of the KX over OG is also yes, this is true. And Raptor X over regular V Raptor.
Yeah,
Very
phantom
nice.
power is just so useful.
Well, and those preamps are really really clean.
Yep, that's true. That was a big upgrade in the
OG.
Red world in general.
I mean, that's OG right there. I love my OG.
Oh, you have the Balkan blue right there, huh?
Yeah. Balkan. Come
My
on. You know me for how long?
my under construction orange is gonna go framed on a shelf at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever want to get rid of the blue. I just it's too cool. Clear image zoom possibilities or hybrid zoom like Panavision.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Maybe. Let's see where things go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Enough upgrade is much better audio. Yep, for sure. Let's see. Webbles. Can you recommend a good camera V mount to gold mount adapter for DSMC2? I bought the wooden camera.
Wooden camera. Wait, what doesn't properly lock in the V mount? You're talking about the tiny one? The newest ones with the rounded edges? I have those here. They properly lock.
Huh. What battery are you using? Because that could be.
I mean, I would be shocked if that does not mount into the camera. I would contact them if that's the case, because
Right.
they tested those with Red.
How's
if they're
how's film
old
color coming
ones-
along?
What?
How's film color coming along?
It's been great. It's been great. I haven't released the new stuff. You know, it's funny when Red contacted me last year about Nikon using the LUTs. I immediately was like, wow, I made those so long ago, and I have so much new stuff that would be probably very valuable to people today. And I have a lot of new stuff, and I don't know how to release anything anymore because I want to empower so many people with these LUTs, but I think I have a way of doing it. Everyone wants my new output transforms. Almost all of my work for the last couple of years has been using those, and everyone seems to like those.
You need
And
an
then
output transform pack.
Maybe, yeah. And the other one I get requested for, since now some people have actually seen them, I have coded up a bunch of DCTLs. But the problem I have with releasing DCTLs, although they're Resolve is definitely probably the widest used color suite in the world, it's not transportable, and you can't use them in camera, you can't use them in monitor, you can't use them in other color programs. I don't know. I'm thinking about that too. And then I have other tools I can't possibly release because they don't work in anything. So,
And
Yeah.
for those of you who are wondering what film color is, it is
Oh.
Phil's personal, massive, huge LUT pack. But it's not
Yeah.
just LUTs. It's way
yeah,
more.
it turned into sort of like I always liked my friend Alex introduced me to a word many years ago. It's a look compendium with also some technical LUTs that are useful for color grading. I'll release film color the next version soon. Maybe before NAB. I have it done. It's finished as far as I'm concerned. I have only been working on a couple little teeny things that I want to tighten up a little bit.
What was that? Wasn't there a coupon code for live streamers here for?
You won't need a coupon code for the next time.
Oh, for the next. What about the current one? That
Oh,
was. I
I'd
can't
have to
remember
actually
what that
check.
was.
I
I know
wouldn't.
you said you set it up and it won't expire, but I can't remember what it is.
Oh,
And
it's
it,
probably like PHFX loves you or something like that. Because I'm weird.
probably.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've set up that code. But
Yeah, film color is truly awesome, and you can actually use like Nikon. You can use the Z8 footage and immediately put it into a color space to be able to use his.
that's been a more interesting conversation. I'm I get a lot of interesting calls from people who have different color workflows and they want to work through ACEs or they want to work through
Hmm.
log C3. And it's really hard to explain, or even just Cineon. Some houses still work Cineon, which is like the old red log
Really,
film.
yeah.
The first thing that people need to understand is we have cameras now with more dynamic range, and that more dynamic range also often comes with a wider color gamut working space. And a lot of people are facing the frustrations of old gamma curves and color spaces not containing that very well, and even some of the transforms not containing that the best way. And it's really hard to tackle that for every system. But I have some ideas about it, and I don't know. Maybe that might be something to work on with some other people. But what do I
So
like
what
about
is it that you truly like about the Monstro?
Well, Monstro is a bigger format than Komodo X. So the first thing you'll
True.
notice is it's a large VV sensor. I mean, I was banging on the door for Red to make a large sensor, and their modern take on the VistaVision format with this VV 8K format has been literally one of my favorite formats ever to shoot on. So if that's alluring to you, that's one thing. What else can I say about Monstro versus Komodo X? I mean, Monstro is going to be a physically bigger camera, so Komodo X is going to be just a more nimble system. You benefit from all of the DSMC3 stuff. It's
What
also
were
a
some of the
newer.
things that like you said, you keep Monstro around because it can do a few things that.
So I have the filters to go to full spectrum, and I do infrared imaging or full spectrum imaging or even UV imaging, and that is not possible currently without getting a custom camera with the DSMC3. So that's pretty much it. Um, if I had that capability, I wouldn't. Wait, what was that question about the APOs? Go back to that. I didn't
Oh, it
even
was
catch it.
just say that you just dropped one.
Yes, the
That
90. Yeah, and if you look at their Instagram post, I think I was like the first comment, like we need that in Z mount. Yeah, I really like the new APOs from Voigtlander, and Voigtlander's like a man. I won't ever say too much about how the lens industry works, but Voigtlander is owned by Cosina now, and they just have a bunch of little gems for EF mount. All those pancake lenses have been great, but these APOs have been a joy. Yeah. Well, that's
well,
the interesting thing. I heard Brandon talking about Canon saying they had 63% of the cameras at the Super Bowl or whatever it was. You have to keep in mind that sports has been dominated primarily by Canon and Nikon for the longest time. And for anyone who's old enough to remember the Andre Agassi tennis years where Canon EOS happened, and then Nikon started making more presence in sporting events, it was a very interesting time. And then now Sony E-mount exists, and yeah, I mean, if you looked at the Super Bowl, all three were on the field. Who had most? Yeah, I think there were probably more Canon still cameras. I saw plenty of Nikon. I saw a bunch of Sony stuff rigged up with little gimbals and things. It's very interesting to see how everyone was using stuff. And I think, man, I know some diehard Nikon wildlife shooters that are like super pumped about all this stuff going on right now with Red in them. So
Brandon says he's going to get the white one for his upgrade. Yeah,
Ooh.
he's got that live stream money coming in. He's got those big bucks on the early day,
Well,
early
some
in the
people
day.
like the light camera, and it's always important to remember, like if you're outdoors, the white is nice to have on a bright sunny day and things like that.
Right, right.
You see, Brandon, good job on this live stream earlier. I was
Yeah,
listening to you as I was like running around doing everything.
he's a whole lot of fun. I always laugh. I literally laugh when I say it. I was like, he took over the whole Friday live stream thing, but he's funny. I mean, he's got a a Jarrell there next to him, and they can bounce off each other. He makes it a lot of fun. That's totally worth it. I got no problem with it.
Yeah, no, he's doing a good job.
Carlos, look at Carlos in there. Carlos, I love you, brother. He just in there with this little super chat. Absolutely.
Thanks, Carlos. Yeah.
Where is the? Sorry, go back to those questions. Okay. It's interesting that the Cinema Zoom does not have IS, but
IS is such an interesting topic still. Man, I got lots of thoughts, and I'm actually still pretty happy that the red cameras don't have it, especially since the global shutter, is rock solid that way. IS is really tricky in motion picture cameras. There's going to be a lot of people on Earth who need it, want it, desire it. There's going to be other people who understand why you don't want it in a motion picture camera. But Red Raw 22-1?
I would not want that on, on the Z8.
No. In terms of the file size, yes. Actually, one of the things I suggested to Jared, and it was before the Nikon acquisition, and he gave me a very honest answer because of the licensing costs with H.265.
Right.
But since Nikon has paid that for their bodies, is the concept of having a Log3G10 encoded H.265 stream. So if you really needed a svelte file size, now I don't know if we have the hardware encoding on these cameras to do that. That usually requires an actual processor or chip.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what the ProRes encoder can actually do in all of these cameras. So that would be nice. And especially for a proxy workflow, that would even make your ProRes files even smaller going to H.265. So I see a lot of pros and cons to that. I don't know. I think what's going to happen is Red's done a really good job of kind of forcing people into making high quality footage. Yes. There used to be a lot of people shooting DSMC2 at 22-1. Even with me harping on don't go past 12-1.
Right.
I tried my best to guide people, and people were like, "Oh, but Red gave you every door open," and then they started slowly "Okay, look, this is the best way to go." Yeah.
Crap. What was the? Well, I was going to say something. You were just saying compression.
Oh, you got stunned by Brandon Washington's dono.
I literally did because Brandon.
I saw what happened in your eyes.
Yeah, I was like, Brandon down there.
He didn't even ask you to take off that sweatshirt.
He didn't. No, I'm cold, man. I got a cold coming on. I sent Brandon Washington my red wrap that I did a long time ago. He hasn't commented on it. I wanted to hear what his thoughts were. Let's see, where was it?
Are there other questions in the chat?
Yeah, I'm trying to get through them all.
Okay.
What do you think? Any chance? Oh, yeah, right. Any chance of Z8s in Red Control app?
What would that actually take? Might take a lot. Actually, might take a lot if I'm thinking correctly, but I wouldn't say that's out of the likelihood down the line. I don't know if that's the highest priority thing in the world, but that would be pretty sick if that all happened. I think the number one thing that's been asked for is if Nikon's going to be getting Log3G10 and red wide gamut RGB in the cameras. And I don't know if that's possible this gen because I don't know how the stuff's set up on the ASIC for the encoding to log. Right. But I bet you that's something that could happen more, tightening up that color workflow. And honestly, Nikon deserves to have more than Rec 2020 or with their wide gamut space. So I think there's advantages to that.
Brandon wants me to play the rap now. I'm not going to play it yet, but when Phil has to go, because It's Valentine's Day, and the little Cupid as struck Phil, I guess. When he's gone, I will play the rap. It's so embarrassingly bad, but it can't be as good. Well, how about that? As Brandon's and Jarrell's.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let's see, another Raptor X. Ooh, yeah. Get one Z, one RF. You can't lose there.
Yeah.
So let's see. What is the with red control? Okay, we asked that one. Global shutter Z8, Z9 Mark IIs. We'll see.
Unknown.
Yeah. Cognition. Hey, Cog. Uncle June. Phil, what was the? What are some good resources for learning how to color grade very high quality HDR? Whew, don't ask me.
It's
Definitely
interesting.
Phil.
I was very early to the HDR world, and back when it was like literally the most archaic way of mastering for it. And I would even make an argument that it's still the Wild West, even in 2025. My best advice is to get a calibrated HDR monitor to grade to. And then in terms of color grading tutorials, there's lots. I'll shout out Lift Gamma Gain. I follow all that stuff, and I even support a few of those communities. I'm like an OG colorist. Like I was one of the first in the industry, and it's been really interesting seeing what has transformed and the roles in the YouTube tutorials and who's risen to prominence. Some people are very good. Some people, I think my favorite thing is seeing some of the younger people who have provided a lot of tutorials learn new stuff and kind of say, oh, this is the best way now. And I don't know. I can't remember how many node trees. This is the only node tree you ever need.
Right.
It's not. I'll tell you right now. I've been doing color work for years, and every project I've done, and maybe it's because I'm just not a commercial guy. Like I'm not, churning butter every day. But I like to tackle projects uniquely. Because everything should be tackled uniquely.
Yeah, I have a base node tree that I kind of work from, but it's
Yeah, I would say I have an order of operations I really like,
right.
because it's just fundamental to how I enjoy working. But I think to each their own. And right now, I think the hardest thing I've witnessed is a lot of people have a lot of automatic looks these days, and I get that too. Like, go for it. But I've seen some people using LUTs that are not designed for wide gamut spaces wrong, and you see these really strange out of gamut colors and really muddy tonalities, and it's just like, all right, I know why it happened, and that's like on TV. Like, ugh.
Is there a motorcycle outside your door?
That is a helicopter flying over me.
Okay, it's like, what is my ear doing here? Hello, Kenya. That's
The
kind of
Ospreys
cool.
will also fly over me. I'm in that line of that flight line as well. So
Braddox, you might be my first from Kenya. I don't recall.
Nairobi,
another- Yeah,
207. Good
very
morning.
cool, Pat. Definitely getting mine upgraded on the KX. Yeah, now that I heard about the side panel, I think I definitely want to sell my Stormtrooper and get an all black one just because. Do you think Red and Nikon will collab on a new version? Oh, yeah. Oh, for Nikon? Well,
If I was both companies, and this is my strong opinion, keep Red the motion picture production camera, digital cinema camera company, and let Nikon be the mirrorless camera company.
but share a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Like, I think the interesting thing is you're going to be able to do motion on both and stills on both. And that's fine. But the Red cameras are larger than the Z9, and the Z9 is a bigger camera anyways. But
It is.
the form factor
Oh,
coming out with like, I'll convert this camera into a production camera by putting it in a 3D printed or milled box and putting a monitor here. Like, it's nice that that's happening now and people have that DIY sort of like mentality, but production cameras are so affordable that I feel like you're missing out on things that are probably going to cost you the same at the end of the day.
I like the idea. People were talking about that maybe Nikon uses like a 12-bit RAW, and then Red gives you the full 16-bit compressed RAW. And I like having kind of that differentiation is kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've noticed talking to the GFX and Hasselblad crew, which I'm a member of both now. What is Red's Custom Shop? Red's Custom
You know
Shop
David
is,
Fincher and
Red's Custom Shop is if you want something done that's a little bit unusual, call them up and they'll give you a price and they'll probably entertain it. I found
right.
out recently that there's a project that I've been thinking about building cameras with a custom body material, and it actually was not as expensive as I thought. But I would probably have to order 7 to 10 cameras for that project to make it make sense for me. So these are larger scale, higher budget things, but I'm entertaining it because I've kind of always wanted a camera with that material, and it hasn't been done yet in the Red world. So, does
Yeah.
Nikon have intentions to open up third-party lens manufacturing to companies like Sigma? I think Sigma makes is they announced they're making Z stuff, right? That happened.
Uh,
The
I
contemporaries or something? I feel like I
I
saw
thought
that.
so. The other thing,
I know
Brandon,
Kazuto
on
would
the
love making lenses for everybody.
right,
And they're making some great glass. I still love my Sigma Cines. I think for slash eye data high speed primes, one hell of a deal on the market, honestly.
the custom shop does way more than you think, and I cannot elaborate on it other
Yep.
than to say, Red can build cameras for things you never thought a camera would be used for from a company like Red, and they
Yeah.
do it a lot.
I brought
It's
them one of my clients last year, which allowed me to go down to HQ, the newer HQ, and I can't talk at all about that project, but the customization we need to do to make those cameras and a quantity of them would
what
be interesting to discuss when it actually happens.
one of the
Spy versus Spy, the black and white, yeah.
one of the ones that could be talked about is that one off those streaming cameras that they were doing, the fiber DSMC 2s that they
Oh
were
yeah, those
selling.
were used. They made a few of them.
They made like 50 of them for this one purpose, and it
Yeah,
was
it's
and
interesting the auction that had the stereo cameras, where they had the custom heliums with just the fiber in the back. I ended up actually getting 3 of those 3D rigs. So I have 3 gigantic 3D rigs that I'm going to do something with
the
relatively
Mutiny
soon.
brass side plate. Yeah, that'll look pretty good actually.
Yeah, Mutiny's killing it. I'm really happy for those
Yeah,
guys.
Mutiny's great, and we'll have them on here soon. Next week, actually, is Ryan Avery with Takina to talk about all things Takina.
Ah,
Just
nice.
for those, as far as we all missed. Yeah, we all missed Jared. I, I think Jared was a exceptionally rare breed. Number one, he just did his own thing, and we love that. And Red has chilled a little bit, but I wouldn't say Red is not punk rock still. Or that they
I
are
think
still punk rock. Yeah.
Jared was one of my biggest supporters, and I'll even say the Red community has really done so much for me along the way. Just the whole journey there with all of that is something that I can never fully explain because way too much has transpired. But for many years, the way Jared and I developed our relationship was very much staying up late and talking about the future. And like when I say late, like 1 to 4 a.m., like really late, and like I'd be on set the next day or whatever, and talking about things I would need or things that I thought needed to happen in our industry. And the best news is things have more or less unraveled the way I thought they would. I'd say there's probably an 8% variance, so like 92% hit ratio on that stuff over the last decade plus of this. Yeah, and I just miss talking about the future. I miss Jim a lot. I still talk to them once in a blue moon, shoot them an email.
I I can tell you that for those who are interested, Jared is exceptionally happy and enjoying life right now, just doing everything he possibly has a little extra time to do now.
Yep.
And it's cool. I still get to talk to him, but we just don't talk about cameras anymore. We're usually talking about solar.
Yeah, I actually just outfitted a nice 17 kilowatt system here for something I'm building. Yeah, I'm
Nice.
redoing one of my offices, and my computers take a lot of power, and when power goes down, I need them to be up for a little while. Yeah.
It is. Did you get batteries?
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice. We'll have to talk about that offline sometime. Been watching for a while. Just got in the chat. What's up, everybody? Hey, Ron.
Cool.
Let's see. I like how Carlos is just cute.
Double green in the makes the colors look less plastic. Oh, I see. Okay. Are you talking about the lens flare or the? I shoot everything on 3x monochrome. God.
Some colors
Yeah.
look less yeah. Okay. 3x monochrome. Oh, with a red, green, and blue filter. That's crazy. Instagram just notified you. Wow.
Wow.
Let's see. Blackmagic does that. At least has it approved media list.
Yeah,
I still think
they got to do that right now, especially now that they're opening up to CF Express on those cameras.
I still think it's funny and completely justified that they have their own proprietary media now. All the people who used to make fun of Red.
This is a hard time because between pandemic and other things happening in the world, some of the mediascape that was supposed to be here by now is not here yet. Yeah, format compare is going to go on. I'm keeping that stuff live. Yeah, I'm going to let people do the lens data stuff. I still actually have I still have to do all my lens tests. And I test beyond just coverage because there's other things I do. Like if you have to, one of the things that people don't talk about when you think about lens coverage is, what if you have to put a matte box on the lens? Will you get vignetting even if a lens does cover? What if you have to use a screw-on filter on a mirrorless lens? Does it still cover? Do you need to get thinner filters? Do you have to make a custom thing? I actually know already for some of the Z-mount lenses I'm going to buy, I'm going to treat them very similar to another set of lenses I modified for motion picture work. Because I'm super excited about tapping into those lenses. And now, actually, my biggest question for Nikon is, now that they've done a 35-1.2, is will they do a 24-1.2? Because no one's thought about doing that.
That's got to be hard, though. That's got to be
It would be hard, but it's only a little bit faster. And if they're okay designing the way they are, I think technically it's possible. And a shout out to Nikon.
Yeah.
I like how well corrected these primes are. Like out the door, very nice coatings, minimal CA. A lot of these companies like to flex their muscle by making the high speed stuff, and I like what they're flexing. Yeah.
Can you imagine a 105 or a 135? Like, it probably wouldn't be a
1.2. The 135 1.8 Plana is a banger of a lens. I don't know if they're going to they don't need to make that a 1.2. That's
no, because that'd be silly at that distance. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Carlos. Appreciate that.
Yep.
I do too. When I have to do that.
Film color's absolutely incredible. Yep. We're just getting to that part where we talked about that.
What did Premiere do? Puts a LUT limitation on where?
Oh, yeah. How many LUTs you can add into their drop down?
How many? Oh, well, you can stack lumetri though. Lumetri. You don't have to just use that one. Maybe I need to make a tutorial.
Not as quiet, so.
That's true. DSMC3 is quieter.
Yes. That's really a lot quieter with that Peltier cooler in there. I like it. And you don't have to black shade as often either. Without the undershirt, I wouldn't know where Scott's beard.
That's true. Very true.
His rap was awesome. Now dance. No, not dancing. You get Santa dances, all you ever got. That's it. But
the rap now.
That's it. Cog says, let's see
David.
support. Yep. Santa. Let's see.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm very excited about this little announcement, some major DPs have already called me, like, tell me everything you know about Z-mount lenses. And here's something I don't mind saying right now, and I was going to maybe make a graphic about this, but for anybody who is used to PL stuff and only PL stuff or any cinema mounts or whatever, something you want to know about Canon and Nikon is Canon has RF and RFS. So that's the full frame variant and then the APS-C variant. Similarly, Nikon has the FX full frame and DX APS-C. And the divide there, what is important for cinematographers, is APS-C is essentially Super 35. And full frame for us is anything that could potentially cover VistaVision or maybe around 7K on VV. So when you're looking at these lenses for Komodo X owners, for instance, you will be able to take advantage of some of these smaller zooms and smaller primes for the Super 35 coverage, and you'll be in a different world, and that's fine. But if you need the coverage, you need to be aware that you need to be looking at the RF or the FX glass for VV. And yeah, I haven't seen a lot of education on that, but probably I was a little surprised that Red didn't drop it with the Z mount announcement.
Right.
Well, they make both lenses, and they're going to probably make both formats for a long time.
Right.
Now it's a question of what other formats these companies are going to support down the line. Are there any vintage lenses that benefit from the shorter flange depth, larger size of the new Z mount? Yes. I think my favorite is you can get Leica M mount adapters with a helicoid macro feature. So like, how do I describe this? Because I have no M mount stuff next to me. But like when you adapt the lens to the camera, by turning the helicoid or coil, it will push the lens out, which will give you a little bit better close focus capability, which is really quite nice for a few of those retro focus lenses. What other lenses benefit from that? Gosh, what's really short flange? Well, all the flange depth stuff's published on the wiki, and I've even updated that wiki once or twice. But there's a lot of shallow stuff that's worth exploring. I mean, if you're crazy enough to try to do C-mount stuff, that's always fun. But yeah, I think the Leica M stuff's the biggest one that's in terms of like older vintage mounts.
Let's see here. Is there an order of operations as far as no sequences that should not be violated? I'm not sure what that.
No sequences. Don't know what it means, but if it's like color related, that's the only thing I can think of. But yeah, you don't want to be using creative cubes after the output transform, if that's what you're referring to. That's the only thing. Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it gets a little technical because some people will make output transforms that do or do not clamp, or even actually things that happen in between the output transform, and you could be losing data. It just depends. I really do a lot of testing and have other people look at my LUTs, so we really do a lot of vetting. But most people call out their LUTs and what they're designed for nowadays, and it's easier now to make LUTs than it was when I started doing this a long time ago. So, just to say for film color, because there's so many creative cubes, the creative cubes are designed between red wide gamut log 3G10, then the creative cube stuff, and then the output transform, because the whole concept of the creative cube is to do scene referred color grading. So if you want to output to SDR or HDR, you don't have to regrade your whole damn image. But now, I mean, there's lots of workflows where people are just grading for the HDR and trimming down to SDR, which is valid. I know people who are trimming upwards from SDR to HDR, which is also valid, but you'll hear HDR purists say, but you have access to more color. It's very interesting when you actually talk to filmmakers about what their end goals, about what they envision their film to look like or project to look like. Josh, it will happen this year, and it'll probably happen within 2 months.
Glenn. Talking about how.
Yeah. Well, Nikon in the USA, I would say, is the most common thing. And then if you're in Japan, I've heard Nikon. And then longtime shooters have just kind of settled in the middle of Nikon, which I've been leaning more into. It's really hard, and I've asked people at the company now, and they don't mind. Like, it seems to be.
it threw me off forever, and I tried to be corporate based, but then I saw those commercials from the '90s that they were saying Nikon in the USA. So it's like, okay, you did it.
Well, if you're in the States, you say aluminum, and if you're in the UK,
Aluminium.
they say aluminium, and I feel it's kind of a similar thing, honestly. As long as you're not one of those people who says pillow versus pillow and milk instead of milk, that drives me insane. But I think there's still more to come for OG Komodo, and definitely more updates for Raptor. Komodo is
Yeah.
like nearly a DSM-C3 camera. Komodo X is a DSM-C3 camera, and Raptor is obviously a DSM-C3 camera. So there'll be benefits to all of that.
Some people paint them in weird cameras. Okay,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah. Barajo, let's see. For high quality short film, Ursa, Cine 12K or Komodo X? What was your whichever.
Well, does
Define
global
high
shutter
quality.
mean something to you first and foremost there?
I
I
mean,
still think Komodo X is probably the screaming deal on the market right now for a production camera.
oh yeah, Komodo X is one heck of a deal. But
Like size, performance. If you're happy with Super 35, it's a killer.
I mean,
Yeah.
in fairness, before any of these cameras came out, was any cinema ever considered high quality? Yep.
Yeah.
So
And the other thing I'll say to Baracho Tarot, which is a crazy name,
yes,
the or Tarot, the thing to do is probably test both cameras to see which fits you the most. I remember when Komodo came out and I showed the native RF mount Fuji MK2 zooms on that combination. It literally threw the head backwards on one DP, and they outfitted their entire documentary they were shooting in Africa that way. And it was such a change in mindset because they didn't even know about the cameras. They didn't know that you could do things like that with them. And I think it's one of those things, until you get your hands on it, think about how you're going to rig it, what you might be using on it. So important to do just everything top to bottom. What type of monitoring do you want? What type of footage do you want? Take the footage into post, do a whole thing on it. Red Z to PL mount and going to transfer. Yes, of course it is. Yeah, Red is a production camera company. If they didn't make a first party mount that did that, I would literally be going down there right now and banging on their door. Nikon, dude, that's such a great moment. Well, it's interesting because I've done shoots from the ISS and we've set Red cameras up there and we shot with Nikon lenses, which makes this really funny for me because that's what we were forced to do because the glass was up there. And they have an arsenal of glass that's just been up there for a long time.
all
Yeah.
those DSMC2s are back down now, right? I thought they.
I don't know. Until my next shoot, I don't know what's currently up there. But we sent. What was the last camera I used?
There were several.
Yeah, my last one
DSMC2s
was
up
a
there.
DSM. It was a Dragon. No, it wasn't. We sent a monster up it eventually.
Yeah, there was the latest DSMC2 up there, and I thought they just retired. I don't think it was a Gemini. I don't know.
Cameras
what it
do
was.
not last very long in space because of your little cosmic damage that will happen to your sensors over time.
And can you imagine the poor people up there? I mean, they try to be hidden, but whew,
Gotta
they
go
go
to
through
just
these
gonna
comments
wipe
faster
this.
than my kid swipes through. This mag may be a funny question, but will the Z mount offer better autofocus capabilities than EF? So yes, it should offer. It's not
Well,
gonna be the
yeah.
same.
I would even say Z and RF offer better autofocus than any EF lenses because they've updated the motors
Right.
this generation. You got to keep in mind a lot of the EF stuff now is 20 plus years old. And there's been a lot of advancements both in the quality of the glass, designs of the lenses, and everything. So
There are some things that are optimized for RF and Z, but if you improve certain things, which they do at times, even though they're EF, there'll be a degradation in the performance from, say, RF to EF. There still will be an improvement on the EF. It
Yeah.
just won't be the same as RF and or Z to EF.
right.
Let's see. Brandon. I don't like the animation. It's like moving an iPhone. It's so annoying. Everything has to animate. This adapter's nice. Voitlers already have much better close focus distance. I like close focus.
Yeah.
Just finished the project.
Actually, that's an interesting point. That maybe it's something. I know I've asked Red about it in the past, but it would be probably nice to have a first-party LPL mount or a collab with Arri. And I know Red and Arri collabed on some cameras a bit ago for the Tron film that Cronenweth shot, which I can't wait to see because he was so pumped and exhausted at the end of that production. But it would be nice to get something going on that front because I still like to say that there's very little LPL glass out there, which is very true. But it would be nice to get some lens data going through that, probably with the Z mount camera, I would imagine. Yeah.
I just updated my Komodo X. It went flawlessly.
I'm
Compact
not doing.
HDR.
I got to do all my cameras, so I'm just gonna.
Yeah,
do
no
it.
kidding. And it's beta, so you gotta.
I do like that I can do it all through the Wi-Fi now, though. It makes everything.
Yes,
So,
and you literally just flip a switch and say, "Yes, please, betas."
I'm thinking way back in the day when I used to prep many cameras and just going around with the mag and doing that one by one, and then doing the calibration after that. And calibration is now like under 30 seconds, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's so nice.
Do you think we'll see compact HDR OLED camera monitors this year? I think it would be nice to get a 5-ish inch OLED for DSMC3. I feel like that would be a really good portable size for travel. I have some really big notes that I want to share with Red about something pertaining to the monitors. And I think it will have a great impact on the now and the future, potentially. Not to the technology of the monitor itself, but some rigging related things. I hope they take that feedback. I really do. 100 nit sustained OLED. I don't remember how bright
1,000
these
nit.
go, but they. Oh, sorry,
1,000 nit.
1,000 nit. Well, 1,000 nit OLED is a non-existent concept in many ways.
I thought the new OLED 2s could do that with a double stack.
5% window, sort of, but you're talking about things that require so much power for the bigger ones. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. Discuss a functional Z to L mount. There is not at the moment.
Yeah, not currently.
And I do suspect one of those two will happen sooner than the other one.
Yeah.
For them, flares distance. Yeah. So yeah, L mount and RF mount are both 20 millimeter flange distance. The diameter, so the inner diameter of RF is 54 and the inner diameter of Z is 55, but you have a 4 millimeter space. And since you can do E mount, which I believe off the top of my head is 18 mil to 16 mil, and those typically have electronics, although some of those adapters are a little janky. It sounds like Red's been testing the Megadap one. I have 3 here, and one of which just doesn't work with anything. It's really awful.
Adapter or Megadap?
No, the Megadap's fine. It's this other one. And I know Viltrox released a new one. I have to look at that one. I didn't buy that one yet because I was out of town when it came out.
Yeah, the Megadap has been pretty flawless for
Yeah.
an adapter.
Yeah, I would say it's the one I've used the most. I do like that they're doing these tests. I mean, I knew they were going to get those questions.
And an excellent point. When it comes to adapters, leave the lens attached to the adapter and remove the adapter from your camera and then swap your lenses. Never pull your camera off the adapter. Never pull your lens off the adapter. That is, Megadap is very much calling this out. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And several others, it's probably a good practice to get into, just like
It tells you a couple things about the adapters themselves because you have the potential of maybe turning the lens slightly in a way that's
the
not
Red One issue.
Yeah.
Where you could short out a power. Yeah.
I don't think I'd short it, but there's that one little board that I could see you could damage. STR HDR confirms much better. Yeah, I mean the problem with a lot of the color space transforms in that direction, and people just trim it to however they see fit, it's the slight differences in luminance that will happen that direction towards the color channels, but Malcolm the Simpsons. Yeah, I can nerd out on color if you want to go deep, but it's stuff I deal with, and I still release SDR and HDR completely separately. We do unique color grades, but I pretty much do a transform. I do the proper workflow of grading in scene space and then going out through SDR or then HDR with minimal issue.
I don't know the answer to that yet, Thomas.
Can you assign magnify as a function to one of the buttons on the zoom out lenses? You can.
Oh, you
I'm
can?
almost 100% sure you can.
It's literally just a configuration that they would have to do. It's not a you wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's anything you can customize in the hotkeys today. The
Right.
ring is actually the one I have more questions about, is what you can assign to the ring because it's obviously a different motion. And the cool thing about the buttons on the lenses, and I know CVP called this out, you have a press and you have a long press.
Long press,
So this could be two buttons on its own.
What I would love is, can we force the focus ring to be like almost physical instead of trying to do like if you start slowing down, it slows way down in the variable
Oh,
variable input. If we could get it
kind
to
of like
act,
the Sumalux C's, how they have it has a weird gearing at the end. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, Red could probably look into that. I think
nice
honestly, I think honestly, a lot of people are gonna. I'm thinking about the different lenses that you could have control over. There's probably value to macro lenses for having more precision, but I think a lot of people are just going to set it to 180 and not touch it.
firm the limit to the number of LUTs that will show in that list. Yeah, I got you.
Yes, I agree about that. Yeah, it's a frustrating thing. Yeah, if I was, I've had a long relationship with a lot of these companies, and I'd love for Adobe to just redesign the whole bloody thing at this point, just to make color workflow a little bit better.
Throw the Z Ultra Telephoto 600, 800 in front of the global shutter sensors. You have a great sport. Yeah,
Big time. That was the thing that was brought up. I mean, for anyone who's ever filmed wildlife or even have taken pictures, still images of wildlife, having that global shutter is so valuable when you're panning with an animal to get rid of the skew.
Your legs are, yeah, exactly.
And actually on that topic, since I don't mind, and maybe someone from Nikon is still listening, they have a great history with 200 millimeter primes, from the ones that Panavision rehoused to more recent times. And that's a fast 200 in the Z mount, maybe like an F2 or a 1.8, chef's kiss. I would love to see that. Love to know what lenses you're planning on buying. You mentioned you're looking into some Z-Glass, but haven't mentioned which ones. I'm going to be getting quite a few of the primes, and I'm going to look really hard at the 400 2.8. It's hard for me to say everything I'm going to do, because I'll probably end up getting some of the 1.8s as well, but I have plans for a few of the primes. I'll say that right now, because they would fit in some of my shooting applications. Much like my RF lenses, I've modified most of my RF lenses to be used for motion picture work. Oh, nice.
Well,
People are upgrading their firmware in real time.
Yeah, I had to go find my Wi-Fi antenna. Is OG getting better? Not yet.
Not yet, and
maybe,
I don't know.
And maybe not at all.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, OG Komodo is just a different world. So it'll probably get some updates, but you got to keep in mind, like, the camera's been, the cup is almost runneth over.
It was 2 years old when it was released. Put it that way. It was.
Yeah. I guess that's one way of saying it.
So they're pushing everything they can out of it, and it is still an unbeatable camera for the price.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm getting more messages.
I just did the Beta KX, and I'm seeing a small improvement to my Sigma 1835. Obviously not the best camera. I mean, I love my 1835.
Desview just announced affordable OLED field monitor. Yeah, I mean, you can get cheap monitors. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It's a very interesting conversation when it comes to lots of equipment and desktop monitors. I always say buy whatever you can possibly afford, like the best you can possibly afford. Field monitors, I generally feel the same way, but I don't really use field monitors for color accurate monitoring. It's monitoring. It's more important to have like a director's monitor or a larger screen that has proper HDR, like a small HD or something like that. In my humble opinion, but because I haven't seen really anything more advanced than like the higher quality small HDs when it comes to color accuracy yet.
So, I've Gregory, one of our longtime supporters here,
Yeah.
says he was at the show today. He says on the Nikon lenses at first, and then on the RF lenses soon, you can control how the focus ring behaves, nonlinear, linear, and then depending on the type of lens, you can choose the amount of degrees. On some of the
Yep.
lenses, you can go all the way 720 degrees for micro adjustments.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's what I think for people doing like precision macro work, that extra spin on the lens, for lack of a better way of saying it, or rotation, is going to be pretty valuable.
I mean, it would allow
I
you to
think
put.
for like most shooting, 180 to 2 something is probably very desirable.
And it would allow you to use like a focus gear and a focus puller if it is absolute instead of relative.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I think that's going to be the thing to note. And I noticed that CVP made a mention of it, and I haven't had enough time to test anything like this. But it sounds like the focus pull on the Nikon lenses is pretty good, which is a rare thing to say about electronic focus pulls. So I'll probably provide some notes on that.
SU 1200 nits OLED.
Yeah.
Not sure what
Z
they're using
mount to
there.
PL adapters with NDs are going to be better than the RF ones. No, they're going to be the same.
Yeah, exactly
You
the
have more
same.
lenses that work with Z.
Well, they'll
Z to
be a little bit
PL.
better because now they're gold.
Rangefinder PLs. No, the distance of the ND is not changing if you're talking about lenses that go deep into the mount. You're going to still have those issues. And frankly, that's on the manufacturers because the PL spec is very well outlined. I've been a very vocal proponent of all of these companies who have been making these rear elements just go deep, deep, deep into lenses. There's several companies now who have made lenses that have wider diameters of what protrudes into the lens that gets lost in the flocking, or it hits the flocking cone. And it's just like, why? It's because they're not testing their designs on mounts from first parties. They're testing them on just little tube adapters, and it's driving me insane. You can't sell products to people if they can't fit your lenses on the camera. Can they make a Z mount to LPL with ND now? Is that possible? I think anything is sort of possible there. It's definitely a conversation to be had. The question really is down the line if Red's ever going to build a camera with ND inside the body, and I 150% understand why they haven't done it, other than the XL. And it also needs to be mentioned that all of the internal ND solutions for other cameras are not great. One prominent manufacturer has color casts on their internal NDs, and it's like, how did this happen again?
Right.
KX had the sensitivity of 0 to 5 AF controls as well on EF glass. That I do not know because I have not used the EF adapter. But I'll be able to find that out this evening because I'll be testing that sort of thing.
I'm going to try a couple of things here while we're
Yeah,
talking.
he
Let's see
might
here.
be able to do that right now.
Okay, so then. Yeah, same for Phil. Usually pure CG stuff. Separating. Okay, see. Okay, it's for color.
Yep.
No, F mount for Raptor
F
XL.
mount for no.
No, Raptor XL is not getting.
There was
They're not getting Z.
actually wait. This is not a full no. Didn't a company make an F mount to DSMC2? And that
Yes.
should be compatible on both of those. It's just not a first party one.
Oh, was he asking DSMC2? Did I miss that?
Yeah, he said Monstro and then Raptor XL, and you can use the old DSMC2 mounts, if I'm not mistaken, upside down on the Raptor XL.
Oh,
test-
really?
I'm almost 100% sure. I have to think back to when I was testing the XL, but I'm pretty sure.
Didn't know that one. That was-
Yeah. And then for everything else, like the current cameras, it's trivial to adapt F. I think the bigger question, it's funny because right now we're getting the benefit of being able to adapt E mount to Z. but I do think Sony is going to redesign the E mount at some point. They've gotten by the skin of their teeth so far. A lot of people don't remember, but like E mount was originally designed for APS-C, not full frame, and that's caused some interesting lens adapting issues. Whereas Nikon and Canon with their mirrorless mounts have made a wider inner diameter, which has caused a lot of fine things to happen.
So we get the speed on RF. It's not the sensitivity. Yeah, right. That's what we said. That's correct. Okay. I was just looking at that and then autofocus.
But it sounds like that part will be coming to RF potentially.
I mean, no, I'm sorry. We get sensitivity, not speed.
Thank you. Yeah.
And sensitivity is available on EF conversion.
There you go. But not speed.
Not what we don't get speed on RF. We get speed only on the Z mount.
Yeah.
Now you got me saying Z. Let's see.
Who's rubbing off on people? I can say Z.
So you could now tell the story of how you got to take that picture, because everybody's like, "Hey, how?" The Z mount.
I am not sure I will ever buy a non-global shutter. I'm still open to shooting with high speed rolling shutter. I have a tolerance now, and I have a very good understanding about when and where those issues come in. So I'm not opposed to rolling shutter. It's just global shutter works for pretty much everything, Nikon's F2 was amazing. Oh yeah, dude. Some of the older cameras.
I want to see.
In my my shelf of all of my film cameras, I have quite a few interesting ones, but the N90 was one of the more notable film cameras from Nikon in my personal career, because it was the first camera we were using to shoot HDRIs on set, and we had two film bodies back to back with fisheye lenses that we later scanned in to create the HDR out of the multiple exposures, and that was right before we went over to digital to do that. But man, where that started and where it is today is like, now you can buy a little cheap camera that does spherical HDR for very little.
I gotta say, I'm using the 24-70 EF Canon on the Komodo X.
You will see improvements.
It is pretty good.
Yeah, I can't wait for people to see the new touch to focus stuff.
I'm sorry, what?
Touch to focus.
Yeah. This is pretty good. That's kind of cool. The 24-70 is not a very fast focusing lens.
Yeah. I'm looking at Brandon's comment there. That's so funny. I'm tired of EF lenses. The focus isn't... the funny thing about the history of that, it's funny, like Leica, this is Leica and Nikon's fault. Back when rangefinders came into existence, one company chose to pull one direction and the other company chose to pull the other direction. And it was literally a not issue back then because it was new and whatever. But everyone more or less went with the Leica route while Nikon stayed on their route. And it hasn't really been a big issue for me because, like, I don't know, my brain can comprehend both directions. But with the electronic focus, you can, in the camera with the new firmware, it defaults to the focus that everyone knows, the direction that we know. If Nikon or Nikon ever makes proper cinema lenses, I think they probably have to adhere to the focus pull direction of the majority of the market at that point.
Boy, will that be an interesting discussion.
I would love to be a part of that because I
would love to be in the room when somebody suggests that Nikon has to reverse it.
I don't think it's a big deal for them. I think it's a bigger deal on their still cameras than it is for motion picture lenses.
What if they came up with a way that you could gear reverse it mechanically? That would be kind of cool.
With how some of those lenses are designed, that would be very, very difficult.
Right now, KG's like, that's good to get
it right. Well, think about what Zeiss had to do for the Otis, where it's literally a different direction on the helicoil. Like,
right.
Yeah, that's the lens body itself. So,
but King, you're wrong. Nikon's got backwards.
More people updating firmware, and I have yet to do it. I have to do it.
No, you'll get to do it, Phil.
Yeah.
After dinner. Let's see. Oh yeah, the 58.
Yeah, that's a nice lens.
Yes, that would be such a good lens to do.
That's another example of them swinging for the fences on the lens. Yeah, it's not a cheap lens, but I mean, I use lenses I own cinema glass that is much more expensive than that, and when you make a serious investment like that, you have to really quantify it. And a super telephoto like that, and specifically 400 which are literally some of my favorites, from both companies, both Nikon and Canon, legendary optics. You
It was
know,
pretty good.
I would
I'm just playing
be,
with this.
yeah.
Good.
No,
The,
I would be investing in it because I need it for projects.
the sensitivity is pretty cool on it, and it's basically when you go -5 on the sensitivity, it's like someone who's maybe smoked a little of the devil's lettuce. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And you say something to them, and they go, "Huh?" And then they turn focus. It's like that. It gives it a good delay before it does it, and then it goes.
yeah.
And on fast, it's like I point it and it goes, point it and it goes. The cool thing with the Z is you're going to adjust that speed. So
Yep.
not only will it delay, but it might do a nice slow focus pull.
And that's what I was getting at with we're seeing what the vision is for what electronic focus and control through the camera might look like for cinematic applications. And I have already new thoughts for Red that I'd like to share, but they're already doing one of the things I suggested with this firmware, and I'm very, very happy about that.
Is it? Yeah, it's possible. Z mount to
I
EF. Yeah,
mean,
it's possible.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it would be interesting to see if Breakthrough or somebody else or Mofage wants to build one because they were all using on the EF from RF. They were just using the
I
Canon
mean, focal,
adapter.
focal reducers are nice, but I'm not a huge fan of them when it comes down to it.
I
You get the increased sensitivity, but you see a hit of image quality and contrast and lens flare across the image. That
I would have got a
center
speed
you'll
booster.
get a better MTF, but whatever.
I missed the speed booster part. The Breakthrough does not make that.
No,
There was an interesting speed booster that mounted up against the sensor. I played with it 2 years ago
oh, you
at
mean the
NA.
DSMC2 one where they
No,
went into the body? Oh,
no,
okay.
it was for Komodo.
Oh,
It it actually had a weird flaw that we found all of the show floor. So that's probably why it didn't show up any further. I thought the Raptor XLs didn't have. No, they have ND
they have the END system and they have the ability to go to
clear.
clear
Yeah,
electronically, so you see it literally move.
they physically move it out. Right.
Yeah, 5.5. Yeah,
It does have the sensitivity controls. It's -5 to sensitivity, but
yeah,
not speed
yeah.
on both EF and RF. And I mean, it's pretty snappy
Yeah,
with.
thank you, Webbles. Yeah, I remember testing it briefly, but my test with XL, I mean, I ended up actually shooting with the XL during my test for this really cool project we did down in Long Beach. And man, that was a lot of fun because I was able to actually use a lot of lenses on it. But I only briefly tested it, and I think I only used an EF mount on it. Yeah.
He's asking if I have tap to focus. Uh, oh wait, let me turn my speed, my sensitivity back. It's so slow. Um, okay, tap to focus. Let's see. And
What
then
monitor are you using? Oh, you're using the top of
that's
the
the port.
Komodo. Okay.
That's the port keys. I'm just using the. It. Yeah, it has tap to focus. It does. I don't have the
Notice in
DSMC
the
three
new
monitor on.
firmware that there's a small HD update too.
Yeah, I don't. I'd have to
Assuming
put it
there
on
is.
there. I'm sure there would have to be.
Yeah. Actually, here, I'll
Usually it
go through
doesn't
the
like
details
that.
real quick.
What
Anything
do you think
really
about the
surprising
Red
in
Pro
this?
Prime lenses? Oh, interesting.
But the old ones?
Mm-hmm.
I always thought those lenses were really
Wait, are there new
underrated, but
ones?
anyone who shot them knew that they were good. But the problem was the coverage. So after Mysterium X, they had larger sensors, and the Red Pro Primes were really designed for a much smaller image circle. But optically and value wise, especially at that time, and you can get them for a dime and a prayer these days, they're very nice. I always liked using them in tandem with Ingenue zooms. I don't know why. They were made in entirely different worlds, but
Oh,
Oh, I have not tested touch focus in the Red Control app, but I imagine that happens somehow.
well, let me verify that.
I think you might have to
Andre says he won
go
a free
full
cage
screen.
thanks to me. You're welcome.
Nice.
Let's see here. Touch to focus. Let's see. Go to focus. Boop. And focus knob disabled. Oh, you know what? I need to update mine. I saw there was an update. Red Control Pro. Sorry, let me get to the next.
Well, I'm looking at some of these comments down the line. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. How far behind are we?
No, they didn't make the Red Pro Primes.
No, they're definitely not. Red Control. Okay. Scott, do you have the tap? Yeah, okay. Correct if I'm wrong, but the Z8 has a scan rate of 1/270th or 3.7 milliseconds. Do you have that information there, Phil?
That sounds correct. I don't remember. Faster than the XH2, which has a 14 open gate read. We could get 14-bit from what sensor? Oh, you mean like the 12-bit? Oh, no. So the stills modes on these cameras versus the motion modes are different. So no, what you're describing is not going to happen. And also the amount of data being pushed through, if that's what if you're assuming like the 12 to 14-bit. That's the only thing I can think of that means, but no. I do think we're going to see some interesting color stuff in the near future, like maybe next generation cameras. Like, it's funny now that we have this extended highlight mode on Raptor X, and I've been doing a lot of testing with it, and I've been very public about it. But I did a lot of tests a long time ago that I think once the cameras get to like 24 to 26 stops, it's going to be very difficult to ever ask for anything more. And when you have extended highlight mode on with Raptor X, you get exactly 21 stops. And it's phenomenal to be able to do that. But it'll be interesting if we get more from here.
There is a tap to focus that works in Red Control Pro. But it's a little off, though. I'm not sure what's going on with that. It's like I tap here and it puts the box just below my finger.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What are you using? An iPad?
Yeah, iPad Pro. Yeah.
Just clean the screen first. Well, no, I know some people have, like when the screen's really dirty, sometimes it'll misread, but I'm not saying that's what's happening. It could be like a scaling bug. I would also test it on the phone. I think Red Control needs a little love for iPads, because I know on the Mini it doesn't scale correctly. I use it in the helicopter.
Let's see, accumulating.
No, it also wasn't Tamron. Tamron did make the zooms, though.
It was Tokita, wasn't it?
I don't even remember now. What tint settings do I set on Komodo OG to get the picture quality closer to Komodo X? Ooh. That is not one answer to that question. What will happen in low light situations on Komodo OG is different than Komodo X, but also when you're referring to the tint, it could have something to do with both your lens and the lighting. So there's not one answer to that question, unfortunately. But Komodo X is better and has better color in low light, if that's what you're leaning into.
I can tell you I run -5 on Komodo OG.
Yeah.
That's this look right here.
Yeah, you'll find something that's happy, but like there isn't anything that's going to match it.
Right.
Yeah. Not 100% at all times.
Yeah, it's a little off for my finger. That's weird.
It could be iPad related. I would test it on your phone and see if it's accurate, because I think Red Control needs a little love on iPad still. Like I said, like
I've
good.
loved it on iPad. It's pretty good.
Yeah, just doesn't scale correctly, and the scaling could be like the issue with where the pointer is.
Well, it's. I haven't tried it. Well, I need to go try it on my Mac because I like it on Mac too.
All right.
Let's see.
Yeah, my red smaller doesn't update. Okay. Yep. Yeah, it's all gonna happen.
When is the SMC4? When would your guess be?
a while. It's weird because the current camera platform is really good. There's a few things I would personally change, and I know from my last real conversation with Red, like a deep conversation with Red, which was last year, everything I want to have happen could probably happen in the same general body form factor, um, except for two things. And those two things, I don't know if they would even call that DSMC4. I don't know, but we got time. We got time for that.
Yeah,
DSMC3 is the now, and like literally, there's new DSMC3 cameras as of February 2025. So,
right.
oh, will they make some new Red Pro primes? Well, that's already been part of the topic of conversation. We've asked a few times, and we know that Nikon is making a huge mega investment in Japan with new lens factories and stuff. And like I said, if they're making cinema primes, my phone and email are open because I have some real stuff I need to have done there.
Yeah, my finger's a little outdated, for sure. My finger firmware is down. I think we'll have a new. Oh no, I don't think so. Yo, Sutton, what's up, Mr. Mutiny? Well, Mr. Half of Mutiny.
I mean, he didn't specify what brand or anything. He just said, "Is there going to be a new cinema camera announcement?" So,
Okay. Well,
I mean, there's
yes.
trade shows coming up. Who the heck knows?
Yeah, Phil knows. Yeah. And when extended highlights of Raptor X, can they just make a default so you get 19 to 20 stops DR if you want higher frame rates? I mean, that's what it's kind of doing, isn't it?
No, you don't. I mean, it's interesting that you say default mode because you can just leave it on and it's on.
Yeah.
But the thing of what it's doing and the double the data rate is something that probably a lot of people don't need every day. It's funny, on my last shoot where I actually used it on shots, it was really cool to see how I was pulling it out of the bag because I was framing up some really tricky exposure situations where I was trying to get the like sun exposed in the background with a decent foreground exposure. And it worked. It worked really nicely and really nice, weird, high dynamic range imaging.
I'll tell you, it'd be really cool. I'm literally right now taking photos of the house because it's listing on Monday. It'd be really cool to use a Raptor X with extended highlights to do a single shot interior with the exterior exposed. That would be nice.
I wanted to ask, Red had some new demo footage I hadn't seen in a minute, and I was going to ask if they used the extended highlights on it, and I couldn't really tell because in Red Cine X, you got an update that improved the interpolation or whatever it's doing. And it was moving in such a way that it was very hard for me to tell. I know from my own tests, like where I'm waving my hands and stuff and I'm overexposed. Have I seen interest in the Blackmagic Cine 12K on the high? Is it because they are used to Arri Red Sony Venice cameras? I think the answer to that question is, again, different cameras are suitable for different situations, and a lot of people, once you test all of these cameras and how you're going to actually use them on your production workflow, it's going to reveal a lot about what cameras are appropriate for you. I wouldn't say I've seen interest on the high. In fact, I haven't even seen some major rental houses invest in any of it, but I think what BMD is doing is an interesting thing. And again, I like that they're pushing the pedal down on some stuff.
This next one, I'm hoping that we'll get a detailed fill answer and not a decline to comment.
I wish they perfected an extended highlight mode on Raptor X and make it an Alexa 35. Well, in extended highlight mode, you have more dynamic range than Alexa 35. But I don't like. There's a lot of ways to Narnia if you think about it. So again, what Arri is doing in their cameras is they're reading. They have two basically processed images that they're blending together after doing noise reduction, and then applying noise back into the whole mix. It's very interesting, their strategy, but that's why their cameras will never be more power efficient or even probably smaller than what other cameras can be. It's interesting that both Red and Arri say 17 stops. And it's also interesting when you look at those things very closely and in detail, particularly if you try to balance out the noise levels with the correct sensitivity adjustments. I'll leave it there. I'm not
You're
really
partial.
interested in red. I don't want red to make an Alexa 35.
No,
I
yeah,
don't.
exactly. Let it be
I
different.
want. I want some other things to happen that I probably shouldn't talk about on a live stream. And I have a feeling they're going to go in that direction.
Will you guys be getting the? I definitely want to test it. I don't know yet if it fits my style or not, but
I will test it, and if it works for me, I will probably make some slight modifications for it to use in a very specific thing I do. That's just me, though. Well, I mean, so like when I'm using my permistas, and having certain controls over a lens in a different way, I can imagine lots of stuff. So
do you think the Z mount will be stronger connection to a PL mount than larger area? I don't think it'll be any more stronger because
no, it's
if you're
bolt.
using the red one, it's bolted on.
Bolt and a locking collar. It's not going to be any stronger, but that's the good news. Honestly, you don't want them to be different, frankly.
Let's see here. How is Phantom Frame? Or sorry, Phantom Track coming?
I've seen productions use it, and I did a lot of testing when Raptor X came out last year. That was actually quite fun. I did like really quick dirty test shoot, and then we did like 3 R&D shoots, and then last year I shot mostly live action, so I didn't do a lot of virtual stage stuff, which was fine by me.
All right. If y'all have any last minute questions for Phil, get him in here because I need to let him go.
Yeah, I gotta go fall in love tonight or something.
Where's Jared? We don't see him. Well, I mean, he's not. He's a consultant only, and as time will go on, he'll be less and less of a consultant.
He's a very advisory sort of position these days, and I'm happy that he's had his journey. It's interesting not having someone like Jared. I'll say that much.
Right.
Dropping the teases and things, but the camera world's also very different now than it was when Jared logging on to Red User at midnight,
Yep.
posting a lizard. Like, I'm thinking about
what is this
weird
fox
things
doing?
like, hey, here's this lizard we shot on some unannounced hardware, or like the fox. Yeah, exactly.
I love the fox, especially when the fox peed on the Komodo X. It was
I think there's probably a way to do both, and I don't know. And actually, maybe it's a question for you, Scott, and maybe this is a good way to end the stream. My career is a little bit complicated in a lot of things that I do, but on my mind often is about, should I get more involved with companies one way or another? Maybe I used to participate and I've used to instruct like Red Master classes and stuff, and I haven't done one of those in ages. But it's been on my mind quite a bit because I want to always help guide companies that are doing good things. And Red's specifically been pushing the envelope for so long and has lined up with a lot of my technical and creative ambitions with what's happening in the cinematography world. And I don't know, would it be weird if I got like officially involved? Would it be less weird if I was just like this weird ghost in the machine, as I have been?
There's always that problem: is the more involved you get, the less involved you get to be with social media. Because, like with Jared was president. Everyone could tell him. Lauren would message him literally live saying, "Don't say that, don't say that." But he was Jared. He was president. You could do that. We would not be in that situation. KG could, but
That's
even
true.
KG could get in trouble because they're a publicly traded company. So there's
But I mean, I don't know. It's funny because Jared, I've signed NDAs over the years for every type of company you can imagine, and Red included. But even Jared at some point told me that NDAs meant nothing because they used to have people break NDAs all the time. And I told Jared to his face, I was like, if I ever betrayed your trust in that way, and Jared's a tall guy, by the way, like
Yeah, he's real tall.
but I was like, you can punch me square in the head, like just do that, because I've been in the professional industry for a very long time. I've known of IPs and things years before they've existed, and some weirder stuff that has never come to market from other companies. And like it takes a certain type of person to always stay a little sharp and not leak too much
Right.
or at all.
Well,
And yeah,
and that was something that I've shared the story before. That Jared, he wanted to tell me a whole lot more, and he said,
yeah,
let's do an NDA." And I said, "I'm happy to do it, but just understand, if I'm under NDA, I'm going to be very like cautious of what I say." And so stuff is not going to get out as much. And he's like, "Oh, no, 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 I don't want you to do that." I'm like, "Well, I've got to balance legal." And he's like,
yeah.
"Okay, fine, we just won't do an NDA."
It's very interesting if you are spitting opinion, thoughts, and theory, and you actually know what's going on. It's a hard line to balance. And I'll even say this: at times, what your hopes and aspirations of what's going to transpire isn't what a company might be doing, and that's the most frustrating thing. Phil, we are on the same page about NDAs. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is with all of these companies, frankly, I've had such long relationships with pretty much every camera company and lens company that's been around for a bit. And you end up meeting people, and everyone's livelihoods at stake, and people who put their trust in you. And you, like, if you understand the gravity of the situation, you can be put in positions where they'll trust you with the world. And I mean, honestly, NDA or not, I can tell you probably what every camera company is going to be doing in the next 5 years. So,
Right.
and that's probably the most ludicrous thing that is actually happening for me, because I know where other things are going, which will lead to other types of camera advancements. And there's still a few things that I'm shocked to death that have not happened in a few avenues of our industry. But
Yeah, it always probably goes down to the same thing as how many people are complaining or wanting it.
yeah, and I think, I mean, we've seen a lot of technologies kind of jump in, but as things improve in the cameras, you're going to find some of those technologies are less needed. It's fascinating how this is unfolding, but I think the next steps from here is to see how this goes, how this release goes, and it's nice that the lens tool is live, so I get to go poke around. I'm assuming that was just Lauren just testing all of those lenses in that format. And I've been doing that work for years, and I know it's just. I'll give you some behind the scenes. Long ago, when Dragon came out, because Dragon was slightly larger than Super 35, back when Red had a little team together, talking with Jared, I said, "Look, I'll give you a few days of my time, but we got to test all of this." And it was for my needs, and this is before the industry is the way it is now. This is much more expensive cameras. We were only using cinema lenses, PL stuff. And there's a guy named Sean Ruggieri. And for a couple of days at the Red Studio lot in their theater, in a very pitch black theater, Sean and I spent all day testing every cinema lens that was available at the time to get the coverage on Dragon. And that happened again, except I did it on my own for Monstro. If you remember that, I think I still have that list online somewhere. And then after that, it was just like, I can't keep doing this. It's just killing me, publishing all this stuff and taking the time out to do it, because the Monstro list was several times larger than the Dragon list at the time. And not only was I doing coverage for Super 35, but it was Super 35 Plus and then 8K VV. Ugh. But yeah, kudos to everyone who's helped along the way. Nate, Justin, everyone's moved on and has other careers and awesome now,
Right.
including Jared, who's yeah,
Yep. And the parking lots.
yeah,
I
yep.
still got to go out there and review his parking lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Scott.
Yeah,
Happy V
absolutely.
Day. I'm going to be getting
Yeah.
onto those extravaganzas now. It's nearing 5 p.m. here, and I have to wash the
Yep.
filth
Yep.
off my body before I go out tonight. So,
Yeah, that'd probably be appreciated. Any closing thoughts you want to have?
I love reading everyone's reactions and responses to announcements like this, but I always like to think of it from the creator's perspective first, or the filmmaker's perspective first. Right now, you have more options for lenses today than you did yesterday.
Hmm.
And
Way
in this
more.
case, you have even more exciting, lens adaptation options too. And we're seeing the really like it's actually a pretty notable firmware update for people who tap into mirrorless lenses for both RF and Z. And I'm very excited to see where the Z stuff goes from here because we're seeing some of the advantages of having that family logic, everyone working together. So I say, however this is, whether you rent these cameras or buy these cameras or thinking about upgrading, view all of this as mostly a good thing because you have more tools now as a creator than you did yesterday. Best thing I can say.
Indeed. Phil,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time. And if y'all are looking, film color is still out there. It's still amazing.
Yeah, and I'll commit to saying if anyone buys Film Color this year, you'll get Film Color R4 probably for free.
There you
So
go. And that was not for most people. I mean, for anybody previous too. You were gonna have to charge for that
well,
for that.
someone bought it last night out of nowhere, and I looked up where the guy was on Earth, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is in like." I have every now and again someone buys it from like the weirdest place, and I'm like, "Is there even a film industry down there?" Like,
Antarctica.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for having
Well,
me, and good
yeah,
luck with
absolutely.
the house stuff.
And if you, yep, yeah, thanks. If you release R4 before NAB, we'll have you back on and you can chat about it and do all the good
Yeah,
stuff.
and I'll be at NAB. And short of a production starting miraculously sooner than it should, I'm planning on being there. So I might be doing some presentations even, but I haven't decided on that. Yeah.
They were asking what was that sensor that you posted on Instagram but did not have the flocking from Raptor
I,
X?
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. It's. I mean, it was nothing. Yeah.
What was you talking about? I don't know. I don't know. Another great talk. Learned so much. Didn't even realize. Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, Phil. Have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Hugs and all those good things.
All
Take
right.
care.
See ya.
And so yeah, it was wonderful. It was a fun, enjoyable conversation. Roses are red, that much is true, but violets are violets are violet, none of them blue, and there's no magenta. DSMC4. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. If you follow the timeline on DSMC when they get released, it's not due yet. You can go back in time and see how often DSMC cameras, the versions were released, and we're not due yet. So don't get too excited. Don't get too excited. New Komodo with dual processors. That'd be interesting. Anybody got any last minute questions about upgrades, updates? Capabilities, all the good things for Z-Mount. I have lots of answers to questions. If you have the questions, otherwise I don't know what applies to what. I'll give it a few minutes here for you guys to get your questions in, and then I'll let you have your evening back to you because we've been almost 3 hours. That's kind of good. We're for me with a cold coming on strong, and I feel pretty good. Although this was a lot of caffeine, so that really helped. Will I be bringing more smoked salt to NAB? I would like to, but right now, all of my production for that is paused because, quite literally, the house goes on the market on Monday, and I don't want to have a batch sitting here and then somebody comes and looks at the house and they're like, "Ooh, what's in there?" Or something like that. I like to maintain the quality, that kind of stuff. So I don't have any that I will be bringing to NAB. But as soon as I get to Alaska, we'll fire that back up and get that going. That is much is true. I don't have any that haven't been already answered already, and I don't know enough to know that I don't know. that's true with anybody. We don't know what we don't know. That is absolutely true. Anybody? So, oh, any other questions out there? Any other questions? We've still got there's still 51 people on the YouTubes. We have 72 total right now, which is kind of cool. That means that EV actually fixed their algorithm, so it doesn't just sit there and count upwards, which was always a problem. And now we have 70. Okay, what do you jumped off? You're like, oh, screw it. All right, well, I think that is going to do it with no other questions. But leave comments down below if you have any further questions that you need answered. I'm happy to do on those. Remember, you can become a channel member and be cool like Cog and Sutton and so much of these other wonderful people like Gregory. We love Gregory. Here's a question. Do you know if firmware could potentially improve boot up times? So the answer is it's possible, but every time they improve the boot up time, if they add a feature, it slows the boot up time back down. So it's kind of it's a win-lose scenario. I think just fundamentally the way that the Red operating system is programmed, more processing power will improve boot up times. But if they put more processing power in there, it's so that they can use more functionality, which will slow down the boot up time. I think that's probably the best way to do it. You can go back and rewatch the whole stream so you can get all the good informations. But everyone, please feel free. If you're looking to buy the new Komodo XZ or the Raptor XZ, please use B&H links down below. I would greatly appreciate it. It'll help me get to Alaska faster. Yeah, as always, as I like to leave it, don't let your passions sit around your life. Let your life center around your passions. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend.